In this world, people are born with a cross on the back of their hand, which hides magical power. These crosses come in 4 types. The 4th cross has a short range, but its power and firing speed are quite high, plus it activates faster than all. This type of cross is used in close combat. The 3rd type of cross also has high firepower, but it has a wider range, and it can be very useful in a fight at medium range. The 2nd cross specializes in increased firepower, but its firepower is quite low. It also has a huge range of assortment, and thus this cross has incredible value at long range. The main character's hand has this cross on it for the first time. It has no advantages at all and quickly reaches its limit in combat. There is not much firepower. Furthermore, it is incapable of using magic. This cross foolishly focuses on production. He is a magical warrior though. The protagonist conducts an experiment in which he uses the power of the first cross, which is usually not suitable for battle. In battle, he made the meteorite core active. Only artifacts are the focus of the first cross. To put it another way, magic is used when using magical tools, but not when using everyday objects. There was a meteor shower. The Earth's surface was struck by meteors. The man consequently sank the island. Magic creates the meteor shower by drawing meteorites downward. His cross, like the second one, can be used in this magical situation without the need for tools. However, he had to get magical tools ready before he could use the first cross. However, activation of this also takes time. Thus, it won't be used against the army. Here, that other side of the world is referred to as outer space. It is said that monsters with incredible strength live there. They are also known as divine beasts. He would like to fight such opponents who say that their magic theory is not good enough. Who, despite the full force of their magic theory, is incapable of handling. His greatest dream is this. They are superior to people like him who need tools to use the meteor shower. The main character needs to get stronger. However, there are fewer opportunities for growth when one has a cross like his. Studying the theory of inexplicable magic that the heavenly beasts who are aware of the ultimate techniques seem to possess is the first method. One can travel through time or bring the dead back to life with this power, which is not possible with their theory of magic. He can also strengthen or enlarge his muscles with this power. However, in order to master these techniques, he must fight the heavenly monsters. Asking which came first, the chicken or the egg, is analogous to that. Such a development is extremely unlikely. Reincarnation in a different body is the second method. However, there is no assurance that he will achieve the body he desires. The guy will leave this option for last. The third way is to find allies. His fighting power will be increased by allies. Naturally, he reached this conclusion a long time ago. The main character tried many times, but his partners ran away every time. They didn't think they were strong. He just needs to find allies who will not run away and will be loyal. Perhaps he ought to pick demons? No, he will not have the support of demons. They want to lead people to death, which is why. I take it that other races have the ability to use magic? Similar to dragons. One of the dragons turned to the others, saying that such an opportunity comes once in a lifetime. 100 years ago, they were almost exterminated by this man named Guy, but now that he is gone, they have nothing to fear. The dragon proposed that they slaughter the people and turn them into a carnage. Retaliation was in order. The man landed on the monster's forehead at this point. This surprised the dragon. They had a barrier, he believed. At his parade, the main character expressed regret for hurting people, but he was still alive. Everyone in the room recognized Guy as the person standing in front of them. The fact that he was still alive was odd. For 100 years, the man had not been seen. He hadn't even considered it. Time flies when you are fixated on your research. Don't worry, Guy said. He wasn't here to engage in combat. Everyone was surprised to hear this. He's trying to find a partner. The man inquired as to the location of the most powerful dragons. If there are none, a dragon with potential is also good. According to the monster, if he was looking for a strong dragon, he had already found one. The dragon was going to kill him. The dragon called him a stupid and arrogant human. The attack had no effect on the guy. The dragon's breath is thought to be identical to that of a regular dragon. However, it is actually a sophisticated and intricate form of magic. The flames will simply go out if you apply a small amount of magical power to the magic formula's weak spot. Everyone was shocked when he dissipated the dragon's breath. The used magical power, however, remained in place. Guy would give it back to the dragon because it would be a waste of magical energy. He returned the magic to the adversary. The dragon was crushed by this blow. The dragons did not believe that this could happen with one volley. One dragon claims that the breath is a recipe. If you break its weak point and destroy the formula, you can steal the magic power. He was informed that Guy's dragon hunting activities are characterized by this. The main character proposed going back to their previous subject. Where have the powerful dragons gone? After losing his informant, he asked if anyone could take his place. He was told that there was a temple to the north of here. There, a dragon known as the Dragon of Darkness resides. Guy inquired as to the type of dragon and its strength. It turned out that in return for valuable stones, this dragon was sent to aid humans. Although saying this hurts, its power is genuine, otherwise he would have passed away long ago. The man came to the conclusion that getting rid of this dragon was what he truly wanted. In any event, even if they were aware of this, Guy was seeking allies, so the information he had already been given would remain unchanged. The protagonist thanked him and said he'd try his luck there. The dragons looked at each other. They decided he wouldn't be able to defend himself from all the dragon's breaths at once. Everyone chuckled. They believed he could protect himself against one blast, but not from many. The dragons were pleased with Guy's death. They now owned the entire world. They were reminded by the man who had survived the attack that they shouldn't assume he was already dead. The dragons were taken aback. They were too dim-witted, he realized, to even recognize the strength of this magic. He had considered leaving them alone, but he couldn't let it go now that they had attempted an unexpected attack on him. Guy responded that it was very hard to kill him with such magic when asked why he was still alive. The man made the decision to teach them how to kill. Also known as a shit stone. This is a raw magic stone. It isn't a magical instrument. Guy will use all of his magic power on it. That much magic power cannot be contained in the shit stone. However, the power of their connection can prevent its destruction by combining it with the spell inside the magic stone. The first ridge specializes in this delicate magic initiation. An unstable magic stone that is brimming with magic power is the end result. Because they are searching for a way out, the magic power inside the magic stone is about to explode. This was bad, the dragons realized. They decided to stop this monster with their breath, since they doubted that he could use this barrier for a long time. The guy parried the blow and said goodbye to them. There was a powerful explosion. One dragon was still alive. Guy repaid the debt for the information he gave him about the dark dragon. If he valued his life, the guy did not advise doing anything else. He set off. At the temple of the dark dragon, Guy realized that this was the very place that the dragon had spoken of. The dragon's mana could be felt on the other side. Even from here, the guy could tell that he was strong. The protagonist hoped that he was a young dragon and would not be as stupid as those old men. Hope dies last. The dragon asked why the man came here. There are rumors of a dragon that helps people in exchange for precious stones, Guy said. He was permitted entry. Everything inside was covered in jewels. The dark dragon requested to know what he wanted and what he would give him in exchange. The boy asked to become his companion. And what he would get, we can discuss now. This surprised the creature. Guy wanted someone like him to fight at his side. He will take care of the equipment and make the dragon stronger. He was asked if he agreed by the main character. There was quiet. The dragon chuckled. The man now claimed that he would make him stronger and that he wanted to be his companion. And people are so humble. How amusing! Guy expressed gratitude for the compliment. It was not, in fact, praise. He was asked not to be conceited by the dark dragon. He only assists others in order to get paid. He will undoubtedly kill the man if he keeps talking in that manner. The protagonist came to the realization that the reward would determine whether or not he would stay with him. The creature claims that everything it does is dependent upon it. However, dragons like him are extremely avaricious. Furthermore, he wouldn't collaborate with anyone on any stone in the world. The boy asked if he really thought so. He showed a stone that is very valuable to dragons in many ways. However, is this young dragon aware of it? Guy took the dragon by surprise. Where did he get it? The monster asked. The boy realized that the dragon knew. Where else but the area around Mount Ronzdia did he find it? The evil dragon King Dabalos. He ruled in the vicinity of Mount Ronzdia about 150 years ago. He was called the strongest dragon, and his reign brought tens of thousands of deaths, both humans and dragons. He has a deep affection for this stone. The Dragon Slayer stone is a rare blood-based stone that is found inside the heart. The dark dragon comprehended how it ended up in a man's hands. He did indeed kill him. Guy made the decision to explain how this occurred. The monster was shocked by this. He and the man got into a fight. When it became apparent that he was weaker than he had believed, he decided to back off and avoid killing him. Thus, the protagonist was still interested in hearing a response. If he gives him this stone, the dragon will become his companion? What would happen if it didn't? The creature asked. Guy replied that he would then have 2 such stones. This angered the dragon. He was not going to bow down to a man. The enraged dragon growled. According to Guy, the deal was not bad. He should try not to kill him, dying is painful. So let him try not to die. The monster bowed down and humbly asked for forgiveness. Guy did not understand what was going on. The dragon will do whatever he wants, just don't kill him. He will no longer act so impudently. He can take as much of his jewelry as he wants if the guy is interested. The creature persisted in pleading with him. The castle had been ruined. The dragon is also very powerful, but the main character inquired as to whether he could hear him at all. Guy had promised not to kill him if he joined him, after all. The dragon concurred. The man recalled the monster's statement that dragons were arrogant animals. When he killed Dabalos, the dragon asked him what he wanted. Guy told him not to be concerned. He would soon surpass that lizard in strength. He was not regarded as a lizard by the creature. He was the fabled evil king of dragons, after all. The man claimed that he lacked strength. Guy inquired about becoming a human. The dragon gladly concurred. Dragons possess a unique ability that enables them to transform into humans. Naturally, they are stronger and have the ability to breathe fire in their true form. Guy, however, believes that they have more options when they are human. After transforming, they keep their magical and physical powers. Like humans, they are also capable of using a variety of magic. However, they are unable to use high-level magic because their magic circuits are not as sophisticated as those of humans. But with their help, they can get closer to her. The fact that the dragon turned into a girl was quite unexpected. He immediately realized that she needed clothes, and asked her to put these on. It seemed to be her size. The girl began to dress. Guy wondered how young she was. It seemed that she did not have simple knowledge, although she would still have to be taught. The girl asked if she was dressed properly. She was Iris, a dark dragon. The girl was glad to meet him. Since dragons do not lose their defense even in human form, she did not need armor. Simple clothes would be enough. The guy remembered the weapon. Iris considered it fragile, although Guy was proud of it. Even a 3-year-old child can use magic with it because it was made of super pure magic steel, which raises the level of magic proficiency to the highest levels. Additionally, it is so well made that you still get great results with its light weight, elegance, and simplicity. In response, Iris said that it bent. The man claims that nobody anticipated its use in this manner. In any case, he assumed she was unaware of that. It bent several more times. Guy used a high-strength adamantium alloy to coat it with soft magic steel, which should prevent any bending. Swung the weapon, Iris. It doesn't bend. But now it has lost its elegance. Now it looks like a weapon for barbarians. Guy's magic device rang. He didn't remember turning it on. The girl asked about it. It was a monster identifier. It starts ringing when there is a strong demon nearby. It can send you to it, just press the button. It seems that the guy made it to fight strong demons, but killing them became boring. So Guy switched it to a mode where it would show enemies of a level not lower than Dabalos. Iris understood what he meant. They will go and fight someone strong. This confused the girl. She didn't think normal people enjoyed this. They went to attack. The guy asked what she was doing. Iris was much more comfortable on 4 legs. Guy thought that if they showed up like this, the enemy would definitely be surprised. This could be done with their plan. The enemy forces were approaching. Class 8, the Ogre Lord. At this time, someone was already fighting the enemy. For these two, killing rank 8 demons was so easy. They were Class 11, the strongest fighters in the kingdom. They were Ural, the Witch of Doom, and Ryder, the demigod of the blade, the edge of the kingdom of Myr's boundary. The kids were enjoying themselves while playing hide and seek. Behind the house, the boy saw some movement. Rather than the kids, he discovered something frightful. In front of him stood a massive ogre. The child was killed when the monster swung its weapon. The search was declared over to the commander. Here, there were no more survivors. The man recognized it as an unexpected ogre attack. Something that suddenly appeared made everyone present terrified. Suddenly, there was an ogre in front. It was too large. It was probably 8th grade. Thus, it was the Ogre Lord. The knights were crushed by the ogre's blow. People saw how many people the monster killed with a single blow. It's really powerful. The knights were terrified. Hold the line, the commander ordered. Who will continue to protect the populace if they lose? The warriors had no idea how they were going to accomplish it. Suddenly, a girl appeared who used a binding arrow. She called out to one of her comrades. He cut himself pretty badly. The vanquished monster hit the ground right away. The fact that only 2 people killed it shocked the knights. They were explorers. Healing was used by another girl. The warriors were not prepared for this. Is everything okay? She asked. They were the Saint Noel, the magic swordsman Kaido, and the magic bow expert Biles. All of them were in Class 10. According to the knights, they expected this from 10th class adventurers. They were dealt with so quickly. They were all very grateful to them. If it weren't for their help, they wouldn't have survived. They made the decision to tend to him, withdraw, and reassemble. The adventurers prepared for battle again. They were surrounded by ogres. They assumed that it was a group of ogre lords. But lords don't travel in groups. So why were there so many of them? The knights realized that they were finished. A quantum explosion occurred. The girl killed them all with one blow. Everyone realized that she was in 11th class. It was Ural, Abendroth, the strongest mage in the kingdom of Myrz. She came here to eradicate all the monsters on the orders of His Highness. The reason for such an order was the huge number of monsters. It looked a lot like magic, so the first thing she did was look for traces of it. The monsters were getting closer. There was another group of lords. Everyone didn't understand what was going on. The ogres were about to attack. The knights fled. Ural was asked to leave a couple of monsters. There was an explosion. One guy cut down the enemies. According to him, once people realized that these were ordinary monsters, they would stop running away from them. They were all saved when they realized that Ryder was present. Here are the 2 most formidable 11th class fighters in the kingdom. Ural, the demigod of the blade Ryder, and the Witch of Doom. Slaying a dragon is their current objective. 18 towns and villages have been destroyed by the dreaded Lmain, a lone dragon. More than 70,000 people have already fallen prey to him. The only people sent to destroy him were Ural and Ryder, both 11th class. Humans cannot match the power that dragons possess. An ordinary city can be reduced to ashes by their breath alone. History shows that at least a few nations have been wiped out by dragons. But that was a long time ago. And for 2 centuries, no city has been destroyed by dragons. And today, no nation is capable of defeating dragons. A sage who hunted dragons under the guise of training is said to have existed more than 200 years ago. He could easily defeat a dragon that could wipe out a whole nation. She would like to meet him if he was real. The number of enemies was excessive. And it seemed like there were even more. They were therefore headed in the right direction. They killed the enemy. Kaido was healed by Noel. Ryder and Ural knew it was time to leave. Only they would continue, the girl said. The others ought to return. The explorers desired to accompany them. Kaido asked them not to worry about them. They could leave them behind if they became a burden. They were prepared to die. The beam headed towards the boy's body. Everyone realized that it was a magic attack. The beam headed towards each of them. Ural managed to create an obstacle for it. Without a doubt. It was a light beam. A quick spell, and very easy. However, it typically doesn't kill any small animals. It is typically used to strike the enemy's eyes. It even knocked Ryder down. How much mana did it take to eliminate such a formidable foe in a single blow? No, there shouldn't be someone with that much authority. She was fortunate that her reflective barrier was effective. Ural asked who he was. They told her that he was the one sent to kill them, the terror dragon Lmain. According to the girl, he was greatly underestimating them, since he showed up in his human form. As a human, he can't use the dragon's breath, which is his strongest weapon. And in this form, he himself is much weaker. Everyone knows that. Lmain saw that she knew a little more about them. Since that was the case, Ural decided to show him something else. The spell she was preparing was called Comet Fall. It was quite complex and required a lot of time and effort. If it worked, no living creature would be able to defend itself against it. She had only one chance. He only used his breath for pests. It was easier for him to deal with them in human form. The witch realized that he did not consider her a pest. The enemy replied that he definitely did not. She thought that he did not know about the spell yet. There was still a little left. Lmain asked what was behind her and directed a beam of light. This meant that he had noticed. She was saved from the blow. Ryder proved to be the rescuer. It had been a bit unpleasant, he conceded. Ural was relieved to be alive. He is an 11th class member, after all. However, she did not recall him using magic, and she felt the healing rays. Or perhaps he could, albeit weakly and for a very brief period of time. It was time to use it, the boy realized. What was it? The witch inquired. It was an identifier for monsters. It appeared to be a basic amulet, the girl noted. Ryder made the decision to buy them time. Ural needs to cast a spell quickly. Lmain realized that this was close combat and decided to use his sword as well. They entered the battle. The enemy noted that it was not bad for a human, but it was no match for a dragon. Ryder noticed a mystical barrier. He knew that something like this would happen and was not going to retreat. He pushed the enemy away. According to the enemy, it looks like it's not even trying to scratch him. The guy replied that he had opened up, so the games were over. Ural thanked her comrade. She had just finished casting the spell. It was a shame they didn't chat much. A comet fell. They both thought they had succeeded. It was unlikely that he could dodge. The monster endured the spell. According to him, only 3 people in this century can use a comet fall. It was Ryder's turn. Lmain instantly recovered. It wasn't enough. He asked if they really thought such a spell would be enough to kill him. This surprised Ural. He recovered even from a direct hit. She didn't understand how to kill such a monster. Ryder was glad to have a worthy opponent. Their fight will be legendary. His style was to use blinding fury. He was about to strike his opponent. Lmain noticed that he had finally matched the dragon. Ural knew she had to think of something. She decided to use another trump card she had, to the fullest. Now, she had no room for error. Her mana was running out. Starfall. A spell a level higher than the previous one. It requires an unrealistic amount of mana, and is dangerous for the caster himself. But she had no other choice. At this time, Lmain struck Ryder with his sword. The enemy cut his body in half. He killed him, but Ural's spell was complete. His death would not be in vain. The girl used Starfall. Even from there, he won't be able to dodge. It's a direct hit. Let him die and erase his existence from this world. Lmain used the spell. He was able to reflect the blow with an air barrier. This shocked the girl. The dragon was surprised that she even knew what it was called. And he was wondering what she was preparing this time. Interesting. Ural couldn't believe that he could reflect a spell of this type. Was he playing with them? She couldn't do anything. They lost. In addition, the air barrier formed a dome around them and restricted her movements. She couldn't even escape. The girl thought that she would die now. The enemy leaned towards her. He asked why she didn't use her power. The witch understood why he would spare her life. Ural asked if he wanted her to test it on him. In fact, there was some kind of power in it. It contradicted people's understanding of magic. And it was similar to the barrier that Lmain was using now. But she couldn't use it now. The girl didn't want it. The enemy didn't want her to think that he enjoyed it, but She left him no choice. A crunch was heard. He immediately realized that the barrier was breaking. Lmain asked if Yura was doing it, but she couldn't break it now. They realized that two people had interfered, namely Guy and Iris. Yura noticed that the girl next to him wasn't human. The enemy asked who they were. The guy felt sorry that it was a false alarm. Iris asked if he wanted to avoid the battle or what. Iris was bored. She recommended getting out of Lmain. That was not what Guy wanted. They were not immortal. The adversary inquired as to their origins. When the monster identifier called out to him, the man arrived, but he realized it was too late. Furthermore, he had no desire to engage in combat with the dragon. Whether he wanted to fight or not was unclear to the companion. Guy didn't see the point in fighting someone so weak and boring. However, he also couldn't allow him to survive. Yura was released by Lmain. The girl recalled that Ryder had mentioned the monster identifier. The enemy employed a movement restriction and instructed the man to remain in his current position. Guy saw that the magic was extreme. Lmain noticed that the man knew too. He questioned him about his next course of action. Yura was shocked that someone else was aware of the magic beyond the boundaries. But how did he quickly comprehend the nature of the magic? And how did he manage to get past the obstacle? The girl was curious about his identity. However, Guy went on to say that Lmain was extremely weak because he was not a monster from the depths of the universe. He was having a lot of trouble with his spell, but let him examine its structure. It was awful. Yura quickly discovered that he was capable of analyzing spells. Such a thing was impossible for any human. The enemy wanted the man to die after being crushed by the barrier. Guy understood that until he showed, the enemy would not believe him. He was able to break the barrier with a small hand motion. Nobody anticipated this. The main character inquired if he now understood. He managed to surprise him, Guy realized. Unfortunately, he was unable to move without shattering the barrier because it was so flimsy. How he had broken the highest level barrier was beyond Yura's comprehension. This did not sit well with Lmain. How could a weakling like him use extreme magic? The guy asked. He understood that his actual strength was being concealed by the enemy. They were increasingly taken aback by the protagonist's remarks. Guy would then force him to show it to him. Now it was his moment to strike. He would begin with the meteorite's descent, anyway. He could cast the spell in 10 seconds. He had to fortify his defense if he wished to avoid death. Guy looked over at Iris. Let her retain all of this information because he would now teach her how to fight. He was very slow at casting spells. His mark is first level, after all. Yura was doing something he didn't understand. The first level's mark caught his attention. He claimed that it would take him 1/10 of a second to produce a meteorite fall using the third level mark. It would take him half a second, though. What a waste of time this is. Iris was taken aback. Ultimately, he stated that the creation process would take 10 seconds. The man said he wasn't in a rush. Guy wanted him to jump on him as hard as he could. Yura became aware of how slowly all of his spells cast. In the end, he disclosed that he had a first level mark. When Lmain saw it, she wished him dead. The witch saw that the man would be struck by the beam of light in an instant. The owner of the first mark has no chance if he could use it to kill a rank 10 adventurer. Guy drew his sword. He was able to parry the blow with it. He was more than just a magician, the girl realized. The enemy was taken aback. Such reflexes do not exist in humans. Guy asked if he still didn't understand and said it had nothing to do with reflexes. Iris was asked by the guy if she knew why he was able to dodge. The girl found herself in an awkward situation as a result. Guy says this is because he watches the enemy's magical flow to see how it changes direction while fighting. Additionally, you can forecast the enemy's spell using this information. He too. Why had he cast such a clear spell? Guy didn't get it. Something special would have been needed by Lmain. There are 7 seconds remaining. Yura was shocked to learn that the man could read the shift in the magical flow. In combat, who could do such a thing? However, he managed to avoid the assault. The enemy was enraged. He chose to demonstrate his actual strength in this situation after realizing that he had a great deal of combat experience. Yura highlighted his virtuoso magic skills. Lmain made the decision to use a space-cutting blade. He will not be stopped by the man's sword. His cut was spatial. Guy produced a sword that made the blade's path more difficult. Those in attendance were shocked by what came next. The main character used a sword to reflect the spatial cut. Lmain thought that was not possible. Guy claims that it won't be an issue to reflect his basic spell with a weapon if you put a spell into it. The fact that a spatial cut is an easy spell for Ural surprised him. "What else do you have?" the man asked. "There are 4 seconds remaining." He started to irritate the adversary. The adversary chose drastic measures. Ural became aware that he was changing into a dragon and that his magic power had significantly increased. Guy was shocked that he had made the decision to show something valuable at last. Lmain half human, half dragon. And he's got more magic power. Can he use dragon power to perform human magic? It makes sense. The adversary advised him to take pride in the way he saw him. For Guy was going to die now. He employed a destructive wave of magic. The blow nearly made contact with its target. An explosion took place. No barrier, Ural reasoned, could fend off such a spell. However, that man. Lmain chuckled. All people, he believed, were too helpless against them. Simply pitiful worms. Guy waited. Another 3 seconds remained. 2 seconds. The fact that this was the enemy's most powerful attack astounded him. Perhaps he would demonstrate his full potential. Lmain believed it couldn't be done. He attacked using summoning circles, which surprised Ural. Rather than casting a spell of defense, he launched a counterattack. In addition to that, his magic circle was too tiny. The way he defended himself was incomprehensible to the girl. The man claimed that the spell's weak structure was the result of its incompleteness. It could be easily destroyed if you strike the spell's center. As the spell flew in his direction, Ural became aware that he was examining its weaknesses. Iris said she was listening to the man when he asked. Lmain appeared to have made the decision to fight to the very end. There were no more seconds. Now it was his turn. The meteorite fell because of Guy. The spell was instantly effective. If there was anything left in reserve, he told them to hurry. Lmain would perish otherwise. The enemy believed that the void barrier would not be breached by the meteorite's fall. Barrier spells were his specialty, Ural recalled. He had defended himself against the falling star. He wouldn't even be bothered by a lower-level spell, like the meteorite's fall. He could not defeat the dragon, no matter how good a mage he was. Guy questioned what the others thought, doubting that he would be okay. The crucial moment was just a few seconds away. The barrier could be breached by the blow. There was an explosion as a result of the spell. The adversary was vanquished. Ural was taken aback by how effortlessly he had dispatched Lmain, the horror dragon. She didn't even know who he was. Ultimately, none of the transcendental magic was visible to Guy. It was unfortunate, but he knew that this was how it would all end. The enemy still had the dragon's soulstone. However, its form was warped. It appears to have been strongly impacted by the transcendental magic. Although the dragon's body vanished, he will be able to use its stone in his future studies. The protagonist can gain more knowledge about transcendental magic by studying it. Even though she was regarded as the best in the kingdom, Ural realized that his power was many times greater than hers. The girl looked at him. About the meteorite fall spell, she inquired. She was curious about the source of its strength. "This is it," the man said. Ural asserts that even if a star fell, he would be able to break his barrier. The one she knows is completely different from this one. That's what Guy felt at the time. She was the one who used the star fall, the guy realized. The girl believed she had piqued his curiosity. Perhaps, like that girl, she could push herself on him as a student. Her mark was at the 2nd level. High-level spells were a good fit for it. However, she didn't think he would agree even if Ural asked. Guy advised her to speak up right away if she had anything to say. This, in the girl's opinion, was unfair. In exchange, she had to give something. What he'll find interesting. The transcendental magic then piqued his interest. If Guy sees it in her, Yuri won't be shocked. He can't possibly be blind to it. She is still unsure of his plans for her, though. Human experimentation. The girl is willing to wager that he won't find torture problematic. You must exercise caution. She could lose her life for any mistake. If she was interested in the meteorite fall, the guy asked. She was uncomfortable. He believed she was interested, she said. When Guy asked Iris what she thought, she was at a loss for words. Her interest was confirmed by the girl. There's no going back. She won't be able to flee even if she wants to. She started to show interest in him. He was taken aback, as was Iris. It sounds intriguing to Guy to be interested in him. His mark, but Ural didn't want to come across as impolite. Since it's level 1, it's not really appropriate for combat. Everyone knows that, the man said. Thus, he doesn't think her remarks are impolite. The girl questioned his strength. She was interested in his strength, Guy realized. He claimed that his brilliance and extensive training were the causes of everything. He was at a loss for words. He was asked to teach her as well by Ural. She will stop at nothing. They were taken aback. Why did she want to get stronger, the guy asked. Ural desired to triumph over someone. No, her goal was to murder him. Guy saw that they had similar objectives. He had one more question for him. Specifically, if this person had any connection to the transcendental magic that was concealed within her. The girl became aware that he was aware of her innermost thoughts. Guy was aware of it from the start. There are signs of distortions in her magic. Ural believed she could conceal everything. Iris was asked by the main character if she was aware of this. He was talking about something the girl didn't understand. She really didn't notice, the guy thought. She definitely noticed, she said. Guy made the decision to strengthen her. She will still be able to learn from him, though. This is the state of her training. Ural is prepared to offer her hand for this, or both hands at once, if needed. The main character requested that she explain transcendental magic to him. Consequences, drawbacks, and methods of obtaining it. This, in her opinion, was insufficient. The book was given to him by the girl. This is the main idea, but it will take a long time. The man saw that the book's author, Ural Abenteuroth, was actually her. It has all the information you require on transcendental magic. Guy expressed his desire to read it. He recalled another ailment. She has to be his friend. The girl was taken aback. Guy was just looking for friends and wanted to start his own group. Training them all this way would be easier, of course. The desire to get stronger fits in nicely with her mark. She does, however, possess another talent. With his first mark, even he was able to understand the immense combat potential. It will also take a lot less time and effort with hers. Ural consented to accompany him. She assumed they would experiment on her because they were aware of her transcendental magic. It sounded like a plan, the guy joked. Iris was hungry, but she was happy that they had more friends. The strongest sage's teachings. Guy made the decision to begin with math. He was astounded by Iris's magic release. At the heart of magic are a number of disciplines, with mathematics being the most basic. Numerous numbers make up magic, including the maximum amount of mana, the maximum amount released at once, the amount of mana under control, and magical fluctuations, which show how stable the spell is. Knowing these numbers is insufficient. You also need to be able to compute them, as this is what separates knowledge from information. But judging by the way Iris replicates spells, she is completely ignorant of mathematics. For instance, you have 45 mana points and need 50 for a spell. It would appear that you just need to find an additional 5 points, but Iris simply adds 30 more. She can't take it any longer, of course, and lets it all out. If she could count, Guy asked. The girl is able to count how much bread and other food there is. He asked her to count as he handed her a piece of paper. Nothing made sense to Iris. The man attempted to teach her the proper way to count, but he found it challenging. He understood that teaching her in that way would be extremely challenging. Is there a magic trick that will teach her to count right away? Alternatively, should he still figure out how to teach her magic so she doesn't have to count? In the kingdom, Ural is regarded as one of the strongest. She is a doomsday witch. She couldn't even scratch Lmain, after all. However, it appears that the girl overused her title. And as though he were a child, he killed him. Guy desired for her to be his friend. Ural was unsure of his identity. He is unquestionably incredibly powerful. She was intrigued by something about him, though. Who was this girl, she wondered. Her aura of magic differed from that of a human. She had obviously learned how to fight from the man. She looked hungry, Ural thought. She was offered some food by the girl. Iris was pleased. She enjoyed the meal. Is she not human? Ural asked. In response, Iris said she was a dark dragon. Among other things, the girl recalled, she was renowned for her cruelty and strength. Iris requested her permission to make a request. When he began saying challenging things, she wanted Ural to explain them to her. Guy thought he would see a powerful monster when he heard the monster identifier, but it was just a dragon. But he did get something. One of the mage he found consented to be his companion. The girls apparently got along. A second mark belongs to Ural. For long-range spells, it is ideal. In addition, he has always wanted to learn about her extreme magic. However, it appears that she is unable to use it at this time. The main character just had the idea to throw a party, and he already found 2 friends that day. However, he remembered it negatively. Up until their first quest, everything was good. They immediately dumped him. That is, he had to take immediate action. To keep them from leaving right away, he had to leave a positive impression. He had to exercise caution. The girl's name appealed to Iris. Something delicious sounded like it. Ural appeared to have been frightened by her. The man saw that Iris was reacting in a very odd way. He had to watch her more closely to make sure she didn't do anything inappropriate. Iris wasn't human, as Ural could tell by her magical ability. She lacked human common sense as a result. He advised Iris to gain a better understanding of people. Who would teach her? Ural asked. Of course I would, Guy said. The man saw that she was reacting in a very peculiar way. Did she not believe he was capable of doing this? Guy should have a solid understanding because he lived with humans prior to beginning his research. The girl inquired as to whether she could learn his name. He realized that he hadn't even introduced himself when Ural said that. The girl was taken aback by the man's name. She recognized him as the famous Guy. The fabled battle mage who vanished a century ago. The person who repeatedly saved the kingdom from destruction, finished numerous high-level quests, and slain innumerable magical creatures. One legend among legends. Guy, who had sufficient strength to take on the form of God. In addition, he was working toward the objective of eliminating all dragons. Iris feared she would be murdered. Guy couldn't recall ever having such an objective. In order for her to relax. But he had heard enough tales of smashed dragons over the last century. When you consider it, he actually killed a number of the dragons on that list. It would be better to be honest with them because they were his friends. He had actually slain roughly 100 dragons. Ural was shocked to learn that he had killed roughly 100 dragons in the previous century. Dragons going crazy and wreaking havoc was something she had never heard of. The man claimed that it was because he had murdered them all in a single day. Everyone was taken aback. Iris was alarmed by this. He asked her to relax and assured her that he would not murder his friends. Iris had heard that 108 dragon souls were needed for a magic ritual. She was the 108th, but he wouldn't say that, would he? Guy had never heard of a ritual like this before. At that time, Iris questioned why he had killed so many dragons. He claimed that they were too antagonistic to him. It was merely self-protection. Iris was still taken aback. She would be obedient, she said. Guy couldn't figure out why her speech patterns had changed. Killing 100 dragons in a day was amazing, Ural thought. And only one of them nearly killed them. Lmain wasn't even strong, to be honest. However, she would be furious if he said such things to her. She needed to watch her facial expressions. This dragon was a hard nut to crack, the guy said. And he had never killed a stronger one. He wasn't considered a problem by Ural for a mid-level group. Guy asked her if she was okay, not understanding what was wrong with her. The girl responded that she no longer even thought of herself as belonging to a mid-level group. Even though they were regarded as some of the strongest in the kingdom, they ultimately lost. She thought. Before, but now. They weren't average level, Guy realized. They continued to be regarded as the best in the kingdom. He believed that he had surpassed them in power during these 10 years. But what went wrong at that time? The man asked her if she was familiar with his book. It's called Introduction to Magical Combat, the girl says. That was it. Additionally, he authored basic theories of magical combat and practical application of combat magic. He wrote them a century ago with the intention of assisting magicians in honing their craft. I had assumed that reading the books would be sufficient to catch up to Ural, but... According to the girl, the names of these books were incorrect. Guy questioned her reasoning. Perhaps he erred when he used magic to copy the books, which is why no one was able to read them. According to Euro, they were challenging for novices. Much of what was written was incomprehensible even to her. According to the girl, researchers from the Institute of Magic in the kingdom were working on deciphering them every day. And Guy believed he wrote them in this continent's language. It turned out that the content, not the words, was the issue. It was too hard to comprehend. Guy did, in the end, omit certain things, but if he had written everything, the books would have been at least 100 volumes long. He made the decision to shift the topic from the books to the group members. He wants a friend. The first mark is on him. It's Euro's second. In reality, Iris is a dragon. Her physical prowess is superior to theirs. Iris was asked by Guy what mark he believed he wanted. With hesitation, the girl proposed the fourth. That proved to be accurate. The fourth mark was what he desired. He was actually acquainted with a swordsman who had the fourth mark. The man believed Euro was also acquainted with him. Ryder was the one. Inquiringly, the girl repeated his name. "Are you in her party?" Guy asked. The main character believed he was with her. Euro inquired as to whether he was certain he was referring to Ryder. Guy said he might have spelled the letter incorrectly. When it comes to magic, he almost never forgets anything, but he can forget the names of people. The man considered making a memory spell. According to Euro, Ryder gave his life during the conflict with Lmain. He was sliced in two, unless he was under a spell of resurrection. Guy was unable to bring people back to life. "Are you certain that he's dead?" he asked. The girl believes that he ought to be present. Guy looked at his body. He doesn't appear to have been sliced in two. Euro gasped. Ryder asked if they were referring to him as he opened his eyes. The fact that he spoke startled the girl. They shouldn't dismiss him so quickly, Ryder advised. The reason he was still alive was a mystery to Euro. Additionally, the swordsman inquired as to why they were asking. "He was cut in half," the girl retorted. "That usually results in death." Not in Ryder's opinion. Guy got it. The heart is where the magic circuits in humans are located. Additionally, the brain contains the control circuits. Euro was unaware of that. Therefore, both circuits will still function even if you lose the lower portion of your body. You will probably lose a lot of blood if you are not trained. To put it another way, if someone can regenerate, cutting them in half won't kill them. This was definitely not normal, Euro thought. Ryder called her stupid and laughed. Finally meeting someone who understood made him happy. She seemed odd to the girl. He was asked if he was fit for his group by the swordsman. Guy was pleased to think that his balanced party was now complete. His party was now full. He saw Euro's lack of happiness. Instead, she was concerned. She most likely believed that he was totally insane. He must ensure she knew how much he genuinely cared for his friends. Guy inquired about the whereabouts of their other partygoers. He was referring to the 10th rank adventurers, Euro realized. They were not as strong as they were. They attempted to convince them to return on the way here, but the dragon killed them. They couldn't defend themselves. Euro stated as much. They appeared to be buried here. The ground was strewn everywhere by the meteorite fall. Even though it is very weak, he can still sense magic, which indicates that they are still alive. The main character believed that the dragon ignored their life indicators. In the end, a lot of dragons enjoy making fun of their victims. He might have been one of them. "Everything was fine," he said. "They might still be able to save them." The boy employed magic. The girl was aware of the restoration spell, but she didn't know why he was applying it to the ground. Guy was taken aback by her lack of understanding. From the ground came a hand. The adventurers benefited from the spell. Everyone, especially Euro, was taken aback by this. They pondered the dragon and couldn't figure out why they were buried. Iris found what he had just done to be quite frightening. "Just a little," the boy said. The guys believed they were zombies, which made Ryder laugh. Guy made the decision to begin their first meeting as a group. Euro claimed to have created this fine furniture in a flash. Is he the original Mark? With regret, Guy confirmed it. Those adventurers were healed by him. "Go ahead and report the dragon kill," he said. They would celebrate the formation of their group by holding a meeting in the interim. His groups hadn't been around for more than a half day before this. 2 hours was the shortest time. Nearly 2 hours had passed since they were made. He wished to prevent them from setting a new record. They needed one thing if Guy was going to keep them: a shared objective. For their unity, they had to locate and adhere to it. The man wants to set a goal for them first. Ryder wanted to get stronger, of course. Ural had the same objective. Their goal was to get stronger. I also want to get stronger, Iris said hesitantly. That was something Guy had never heard her say before. I have, the girl said. He advised her not to be shy and to express any other goals she might have. Iris made the decision to repeat it. She did want to get stronger. The next query. Guy inquired as to how precisely they wished to gain strength. They wanted to fight tough opponents, Ryder retorted. Ural thought they had to put in a lot of effort and develop their magic abilities. Iris said what they had said. She was just repeating them, Guy realized. They were both correct, he said. There are 3 components that make up combat power: items, abilities, and strength. There won't be any issues with the first 2 points. Items are also simple, and he will teach them skills. However, the challenge lies in their abilities. However, he is prepared to personally train them because they wish to kill small dragons like that one. That dragon was not small in Ryder's opinion. It surprised Yuri that Guy would train them himself. He asserts that once they acquire skills, they will recognize what they will require. The next step, which is to choose these items, will come next. Iris stated that she would create the item after they gathered the required supplies. His first mark is the best for creating things, as Guy mentioned. Yuri won't be around to witness this. Strength now. The hardest part. In addition, their physical and magical abilities are still constrained due to their human nature. There will be no one stronger than Iris. The girl vowed to put her all into it. She is taken aback though. Guy is able to sense people's abilities. The problem, he said, is that people have to live with marks all their lives. His combat power makes him the weakest. However, nothing prevents them from figuring out how to outdo the human strength limit. Ryder had no idea what he was discussing. At first, Guy was discussing powers that are not human. Ural recognized his meaning. Transcendent enchantment. Monsters also exist in space. They are so powerful that they are known as the spirits of burning stars. Properties can also be used to characterize transcendent magic. This implies that it can be learned and replicated as well. You can't usually duplicate a dragon's lethal breath after you kill it. A hound's keen sense of smell is lost when it is killed. However, everything is different when the spirits of burning stars are present. The victor has the right to gain strength by assuming all of the loser's abilities. Thus, until the spirit's power becomes omnipotent, they repeat this process. They could start using at least a tiny portion of their power after obtaining at least one of their fragments. Ryder wasn't sure. Guy turned to Ural and offered to ask if he was correct. The girl affirmed what he had said. The organization to which she belonged trusted her with its extreme magic. She is still unable to use it normally, though. Would she kill the dragon that attacked today, Guy asked? Ural believed that she could. Her spirit fragment did not appear to the guy to have fallen to the ground by accident. The main character inquired as to whether she had any idea where they obtained it. The girl didn't know. She was a mere mortal, and information about transcendental magic was kept secret. The truth was only known at the highest levels of the organization. Guy made the decision to ask them directly since that was the situation. They would humbly plead with them, Ryder continued. With magic in all their hearts. How would they employ magic? Iris inquired. The girl didn't know what it meant when Ryder displayed his muscles. Ural could still recall the award ceremony. They were hazy, but Ural recalled that it was at their headquarters. Go there, Ryder advised. It wasn't that easy, the girl said. She had made one attempt to get there already. But she only discovered a crater, seemingly caused by a falling star. They were hiding their tracks, Guy decided. He inquired as to whether Ural's target was a member of this group. So it was. He used to be the most powerful individual in the company, and was referred to as an agent by everyone. The protagonist claims that the first thing they do is look for evidence of the organization. The second is trying to figure out how to get extreme magic. They battle everyone and hone their abilities in the process. This sounded like a plan, Ryder said. Ural is not against it. First, Iris inquired as to their destination. They will first report on Lmain's murder in the Kingdom of Myers. The organization will receive an invitation as soon as this information reaches them. Guy had visited this kingdom many times and found it to be quite lovely. Are you certain it's still like that? Ryder asked. The man now made the decision to employ teleportation magic. The others were taken aback by how far he could teleport. They'd arrive ahead of their partners. The Kingdom of MYRZ's capital. They had already reached the location. The barrier that the locals were so proud of stood in front of them. It had saved the kingdom numerous times, Ryder had heard. They claimed that a strong magician had built this impenetrable barrier many years ago. Guy, it turned out, had made it. He would say so, the swordsman surmised. They went inside the castle. The guards were not particularly visible to Guy. Has something happened? He asked. It was always like this here, Ural retorted. There was no use in having many guards because the enemy could not get past the barrier. Ryder recommended that he go out and eat with Iris instead of presenting himself to the king for the time being. Guy, however, needs to ask the king a small favor. Sir Ryder and Lady Ural were welcomed by the guards. It meant that they had come. Lmain had been killed by them. Ural requested that the king be informed of this incident. This will definitely be done, the guard retorted. He requested to give them their pass. Where was Guy and Iris's pass? The guard inquired. He was unaware of their identities. No one without a pass was allowed inside. Ural asked to be allowed inside with them, explaining that they had assisted them in killing Lmain. Even if she asked, the guard would respond that this was His Majesty's directive. They asked him if he had never heard of Guy, a battle mage, and introduced him to him. After giving him a serious look, the guard said he hadn't. They asked Ural and Ryder to accompany them, and they were allowed to pass. Then they made the decision to try to get the king's approval. At least they would try. Iris pondered Guy's next move. The presence of Ural and Ryder pleased the king. He gave them props for defeating the dragon Lmain. The 11th rank, as one might expect. In the kingdom, they were the strongest. The two acknowledged that Lmain's death was not truly their fault. The king had no idea what they were discussing. He asked Ural to see him. Ryder saw that they were already there. Abruptly, a portal with Iris materialized in the hallway. Ryder laughed at the surprise of what was happening. Guy persisted even though Iris was afraid to leave. He shoved her away and got out himself. The king summoned the guards and gave the order to seize them. Guy put up a barrier, so the guards' attempt to seize him was unsuccessful. They had no intention of using magic. They attacked without thinking, the man claimed. An odd response. He inquired as to whether they could hear him at all. There is no need to listen to anything from an intruder, the king declared. How did you get in? The ruler asked. It was teleportation magic, Guy explained. The king claimed that the barrier the fabled magician had erected between them was impenetrable. Not even teleportation magic could get past it. The man inquired as to whether their renowned magician was, in fact, Guy. Who told him? The king inquired. He was unknown outside of the royal family. The main character retorted that he had heard nothing from anyone. Guy was his name. The ruler was taken aback. He commanded the guards to dismount. A portrait of the former monarch and main character hung above his head. Although it somewhat resembled him, his age was obviously out of character for a battle mage. Guy chose to obtain the remaining contract from the construction period because he didn't think it was real. The king was shown it by the boy. He was certain that the royal family owned the seal on it. The guards were let go by the man. They resisted, but it was an order. The king expressed regret. He didn't mean any harm to Lord Guy. Let them tell him if there was anything he could do to help. The boy thanked him and said he was sorry for being so direct, but first he wanted to register under a different name in the kingdom. The ruler was taken aback. The mage claimed that it was clear that he would be regarded as a hero without him, and that would make things much simpler for him. The king believed that his name should remain. These days, his name was widely used. If they said he was a legendary mage, nobody would believe it. There were a lot of Gaiuses here, the boy decided. However, why? It wasn't the best name, in his opinion. Gaius then desired to register his companion. Iris was her name. The fact that she was a dragon startled the king. The boy clarified that everything was okay as long as she appeared to be human. The king concurred. The king would follow their instructions. Gaius urged her to behave humanely. One more thing, too. The mage inquired as to whether he was aware of any group that bestowed amazing magic on people. The king became quiet. They were discussing the Brotherhood of Burning Stars, he realized. Is that its name? Gaius inquired. The Royal Intelligence Department actually refers to her by this name. Ural believed they were incompetent at choosing names. Ryder believed that this society was extremely covert. The king will direct that every piece of information pertaining to them be gathered. A week or so will pass. He will assign this task to the Knight's commander because getting a pass here is also a lengthy process. Unfortunately, there are more pressing issues, even though he would like to assist them as well. Ural believed Your Majesty would handle this more quickly. After all, the man clarified, he was the king. Additionally, he is unable to forget his responsibilities. There was a problem here, Guy realized. He believed that the king did not frequently assign such duties to his subordinates. I'll wait, the man said. Ryder and Ural were not happy. The ruler expressed regret to them. Guy inquired as to whether anything had occurred. It turned out that the Knight Commander did not like either of them. Guy inquired about his personality. He worked hard, the girl retorted. Ural denied the man's suggestion that he might be capable. The commander of the Knights sent a letter. Guy saw that the meeting had only been over for a few hours. How quick he was. He works incredibly hard. If there was at least some information about the organization, that would be beneficial. Then, what else might there be? They anticipated learning more about the Brotherhood of the Burning Star. Everyone was taken aback. Although the commander had been told to show them all the respect they deserved, he also wanted to ensure that they complied with the kingdom's regulations. First and foremost, they need to give him a thorough report on the dragon Lmain's demise. They wouldn't have enough paper for everything, Ural thought. Additionally, he will promptly turn down a request if he doesn't like it. Guy understood the nature of the Knight Commander. They would follow his rules if he so desired. Being strict isn't all that horrible. However, you will suffer if you pay her back. Everything ought to be alright. He requested that he be allowed to complete the report. Guy advised Iris to attempt writing it. The girl was taken aback. He believed she would benefit from the practice. Despite her best efforts, Iris was unable to complete the task because she is a dragon. Guy chose to write it himself because he didn't think she was doing that badly. When the main character realized he wasn't that strong, he became depressed. Unfortunately, he had hoped to gain some additional knowledge about transcendental magic. Ultimately, his body simply vanished. Guy was done. Ural assumed they would be turned away. Too many things were unclear, the girl explained. He advised her to give it a shot. She lacked writing skills. Ryder chose to accept the position. Guy hoped Ryder's writing would surpass theirs. The most important factors were readability and credibility, not style. He had written something that would be better to read. He had a lot of self-confidence. Guy saw that everything was described in an overly formal manner, as if it were written by a high-ranking official. He didn't believe Ryder was capable of writing that way. Furthermore, Ural had forgotten that he had always handled documents well. They made the decision to go deliver the report to him. The office of the Knight Commander. Commander Manos received the death report from Lmain. He didn't like something. He said they were mistaken if they believed this to be a good report. He gives them 5 minutes. Allow them to reflect on what is wrong with both them and him. Guy was surprised by this. Ryder accepted the report and pledged to make all the necessary corrections. The main character didn't comprehend his actions and believed it to be flawless. "What are you doing?" the man asked. The pen was devoid of ink. "Just have faith in him," Ryder advised. The swordsman asked to double-check after stating that they had made changes. The commander considered it. It was already better, he said. Considering that they were battle mages, they were even somewhat humble. "Please don't look at her that way," Iris asked. She merely existed as a dragon. Ural was curious as to what he disliked. Ryder, it turned out, had not altered a single word. Ural appeared to believe that his role was to make someone make a change. Guy didn't mean it that way when they said he was a hard worker. Ural and Ryder dislike him because of this. He was Guy, Manos recognized. The man asserts that the knights are responsible for overseeing battle mages. According to the report, they desired to join Ural and Ryder in a group. Is that true? He asked. What's wrong? Guy asked. The commander forbids it. His combat power will be diminished if he joins them. The boy became aware of his lack of confidence in his skills. Manos inquired about his rank. What does rank mean? Guy asked. The commander was taken aback. The man believed their king to be genuinely helpless. How he could recommend such a block had baffled the commander. He made the decision to give him a shot. Manos would face a trial tomorrow to see how strong he was. The boy was taken aback. The following day, Guy realized that all he had to do was demonstrate his abilities. That was it. The actual battle mages were powerful, but it was hard to gauge their strength. For instance, they couldn't simply claim that their king was strong because of this. The boy's lack of fear startled the commander. He was grateful for his courage. He would accept him if he beat the examiner, and let him form an organization. He made the decision to save time. It's time to present the examiner. It was Gannis, the valiant knight who held the 10th rank in their order. The man chuckled. They didn't anticipate seeing a person of the 10th rank here, so he was prepared to wager. He had to be stronger than the 10th if he wanted to join the 11th. This guy was too weak, Guy thought. He can estimate the enemy's strength to a certain degree when he fights one-on-one, but he is so weak that the man cannot even gauge his level. In addition, Ural wouldn't know what to do if 15 infants attacked her. Guy didn't think the enemy was that powerful. As a battle mage, no, but as a mere mortal, yes, Ural says. The main character considered what would occur if he used a single blow to end everything. No. Perhaps he is actually concealing his strength? He must thus stall in order to gain time. The man considered the repercussions of exerting all of his strength. He was unsure of what to do. The commander believed Guy's silence was a result of fear. There was still time to persevere. Alternatively, he could try letting the girl go first to see how strong he is. She still needed to be checked because she was joining their group. Iris was taken aback. Weaklings were not permitted to join the 11th rank by Manos. They would only be responsible for themselves if they were weak or undeserving. Without hesitation, she agreed. He saw that the girl was not to be taken lightly. Guy was aware that Iris would initiate the altercation if he didn't think of something right away. Time to get started. The opponent inquired as to the woman's mental state. He was a 10th rank, after all. Iris was aware. She wanted to be certain that defeating him was all she needed to do. Guy was asked to calculate her strength by Ryder. The man was completely clueless. And that was awful. He cautioned her that everything would end if she made one mistake. The commander believed that Gaius was preventing her from moving because he was worried about her death. After all, they were nothing more than pitiful itinerant battle mages. The difference in strength was readily apparent. Gaius couldn't tell if he was acting or just being foolish. He would be the one to die, not her. They thought of a way to show off their strength without engaging in combat. Take target shooting, for instance. From above, Gaius saw the statue of Manos. He instructed her to shatter it. The commander was enraged by this. Don't worry, Gannis told him. It was, after all, composed of a unique mithril alloy. He became calmer as a result. They couldn't possibly scratch it. It was time for them to come out. Iris succeeded in shattering the statue in 2 parts. The opponents were taken aback. Guy wanted to know what they thought. Should he allow her to continue fighting them? Iris was glad to oblige. Gannis was taken aback by her breaking a statue composed of mithril from such a distance. He would be embarrassed to fight a young girl as a knight. Let her do as she pleases. It was Guy's turn now. He had thought of a good excuse, the guy saw. If he was concealing his actual strength, he was doing it quite well. He even questioned how. The commander gave Gannis the order to defeat Guy after realizing that he had made the decision to fight. The enemy ordered him to approach and was about to display his full power. He had gained some strength, to be sure, but Guy had not noticed any spells he was getting ready to cast. His methods were simply astounding, if he was also concealing them. The enemy was going to attack. Manos recalled that the king had ordered that Gannis could not be killed. As the commander stated, it was his problem if he didn't hear. When the enemy's weapon struck the man, it broke. They had no idea what was happening. Guy had not yet taken any action. His clothing was magically made to appear damaged. Mages frequently enchanted their objects. It was his turn now. He urged him to stop making such odd noises. If not, it sounded like the man was making fun of him. Guy hit. He made no attempt to defend himself. The main character believed that this was a component of his scheme. Nevertheless, until he gives up, the victory won't be recognized. We have to beat him until the very end. Guy went on. The enemy had not yet considered giving up. Gannis was a concern for Manos. The man understood that he had no secret abilities. What a letdown. The adversary fought until the very end. Despite his weakness, he is not lacking in bravery. Guy did not allow him to speak, so Ryder assumed he did not surrender. The man knew this right away. The main character inquired as to whether the commander now acknowledged the group's formation. Not at all, the man said. Did they truly believe there would be just one adversary? Don't let them become overconfident. Yura was told to fight them by him. It made sense to assume that they would need to be as strong as them in order to join the 11th rank. He wouldn't let them band together otherwise. Considering that he was making Yura fight, Guy took him by surprise. Nevertheless, he would have preferred to see her fighting prowess. The girl believed that if they got into a fight, they would ruin the arena. She was told not to worry by Manos. He would call people if needed, and they would erect a wall around themselves so they could fight for their own enjoyment. Yuro asked what he thought. Guy thought it was intriguing. It would have pleased him to see her strength as well. However, the girl had no desire to fight him. She really didn't stand a chance against him. The man had no intention of fighting to the death. All he wanted to do was test her. Yuro chose to concur. Manos prohibited her from reducing her power. He won't be allowed to start a group if he doesn't put in his best effort. The battle must begin now. The commander gave the order to go to war. He questioned Guy's intense desire to start a party. He was too dubious. He needed to see that the boy had good intentions. Guy was not someone Yura wanted to fight. Manos reminded them that it was forbidden to hold back their strength prior to the battle. He would decline to organize a party if he saw that they weren't fighting to the best of their abilities. Guy asked them to throw themselves at him with all their might as he spoke. He wished to test her abilities for himself. She didn't believe she could prevail. She would have rather not fought him, to be honest. Yuro came to the conclusion that they could destroy everything here because the commander had told them not to hold back. Manos pleaded with them to cease. He commanded that all knights of rank 7 and higher be summoned right away. They started erecting a wall. Guy believed that his decision to erect a barrier was made too late. They also believed that he would reconsider. Ryder declared that he would never retract his statements. He was overly arrogant. After 3 hours. Even though this is the fundamentals, you can greatly improve your chances of winning a battle if you can learn to control your magical abilities. You can make the spell stronger by compressing magic in this way. According to Yuro, his technique necessitates a high level of endurance and focus. It's really impressive, Ryder added. Furthermore, focus and the mark are not the only factors. The benefits of diligent training are evident. Guy claims that this method results in a phenomenon known as primeval magic. This power is even more powerful in transcendental magic though, and that is what he hopes to accomplish. Combining the abilities of multiple magicians can also grant this power. It is incredibly talented. However, it should be a fairly potent spell even with what they have. He was interrupted by the commander. He questioned why all the mages were so leisurely and why they weren't finished yet. And the person who put so much work into building the barrier told Guy this. According to Yuro, they could complete everything quickly. However, mages' protracted preparation is typical. According to one of the knights, the barrier was nearly finished. The building was finished. The barrier was ordered to be raised. Manos commanded them to start. Guy pointed out that a single shockwave from them would shatter his barrier. And generally, rather than fight her, he had a crazy urge to kill him. Don't do that, the girl said. Later on, the issues would not stop. The man would try to exercise greater caution. However, He didn't care if the commander died. They wouldn't receive permission then either, Uro retorted. Guy let her start. A spell was cast by the girl. The knights saw how intricate Lady Uro's magic circles appeared. Another reflected that he had never witnessed a comet fall before. A comet fall had never been so complicated, but it turned out to be not the first time. She was going to call for a star to fall, they realized. It would ruin everything in this area. Uro reasoned that allowing the enemy to see her spell would be a loss in and of itself. However, she had yet to come across anyone capable of breaking this spell. A fall was called for by the girl. The commander believed she was going to murder everyone present. Guy considered the immense destructive force. If her opponent hadn't been a mage, it would have worked. Manos, appalled, gave the order to reinforce the barrier. One of the stars fell. Consequently, the barrier started to crumble. The commander requested a speedier restoration. Guy remained standing where he was. He says this spell takes a great deal of time and preparation. And she threw it pretty fast. He noticed that she didn't waste any time. He didn't even bat an eyelid, as the girl saw. His actions slightly damaged her pride, but she did not think she would say this. It was his turn to strike now. Allow Uro to attempt blocking. Uro recognized this as an artifact of some sort. He had the first mark, the man reminded her. His spells were very slow because of this. However, he produced an artifact that accelerated spell casting. Uro thought that was very clever of him. He was going to demonstrate a fighting technique that was ideal for sparring with the second and third marks. She might think of it as the foundation of magical combat. Guy directed a spell at the sky. The girl was thrilled. The commander said he would consider Guy defeated if he committed the same error again. And he made another one while it was being made. Uro focused on these magic circles after realizing that this was a multifaceted attack. What are these circles? Manos inquired. Could he not properly cast any spells? The girl believed that she could still infer his actual strength from the mana flows, despite the fact that he was concealing it. So let them handle this while the actual spell was being prepared. His weapon was an infernal arrow. The commander was unable to identify the type of spell. Uro believed that. She employed a magical reflective barrier in that situation. She sent them back, and the knights were pleased. Guy acted appropriately after realizing that Uro had foreseen the spell. It was praiseworthy. He didn't expect much from her though. He produced a quantum explosion. The barrier began to crack. The knights were unaware of the extent of this power. He could not possibly be without a rank. It was best to get out of here. Manos urged Uro to attack him instead of dodging. The girl considered it a victory in and of itself that she was at least able to stand. However, it was as he stated. It was her turn to strike now. Guy disagreed. He had not yet finished his attack. He prepared a spell, but the girl forgot about it. Guy had informed her. It takes a long time to prepare for the first mark spell. Letting him set up a barrier would be preferable. Uro questioned whether the fall was caused by a meteorite. According to the commander, Uro's spell began with the meteorite fall. Guy, as he believed, was a useless mage. He talked as though he knew everything, but the girl knew he was an amateur himself. However, the meteorite fall he employed against Lmain was significantly quicker. Uro thought he was being reticent. When that meteorite fell, she didn't believe she could protect herself. The spell was the same, the man said. It also possessed the same quantity of mana. The girl was taken aback. The knights became aware that it was a meteorite fall when they heard a roar. He was getting close to the surface. Why his spell was stronger than Uro's falling star was beyond the commander's comprehension. It was time for the knights to leave after realizing they were done. The compression of magical power is the only distinction. Compressing the spell during Guy's battle with the dragon increased its power while decreasing its surface area. His use of a spell of mass destruction like this startled Uro. There is still much for her to learn. An explosion occurred. The barrier of the commander collapsed. Since Manos is a traveling mage, he was unable to comprehend how this occurred. A statue of Mithril was flying in his direction. It landed squarely on the commander. By some miracle, Uro survived. In other words, Guy modified the spell to fit her abilities, making them just sufficient to stop it. Is this true? The girl asked. After all, Guy saw that this battle had taught her something. Additionally, he stated that knowing a spell made blocking it easier. As a result, in combat, tactics and spell casting speed are more crucial than sheer force. Actually, the knights were aware of her starfall. However, they were unaware of his meteorite fall. She wasn't certain she would have lived if he hadn't warned her. He asserts that the most fundamental action that can be taken is to use delaying spells. It's a fantastic diversion as well. He cannot, however, constantly battle with such feeble spells. The man considered striking something more powerful. Stop, the commander pleaded. If he didn't win, Guy retorted, he wouldn't recognize his party. This is not yet the end of the fight. Manos permitted the formation of the party. He asked him to take the permit and go after giving it to him. He had it all along, Guy realized. Since it was all over, the man asked if he could cast one final spell. There were enough spells, the commander retorted. However, it had long been prepared. To interrupt him would be a shame. Manos let out a horrified scream. Confetti appeared as a result of the spell. The knights promptly summoned a doctor after the commander passed out. Guy was happy that he had convinced him. Uro wasn't sure if his words had persuaded him. It was only now that Iris understood that it was already over. The following day, Guy received an apology from the knight for interrupting. The king wanted to meet them, he said. To accompany him to the palace, he asked them. This was probably yesterday or so. However, the knight didn't believe he would hold him accountable for anything. The king apologized for Commander Manos and acknowledged that he had gone too far. Additionally, he conveyed his appreciation. They couldn't figure out why. The king clarified that the man was skilled at politics but inept as a commander. It was really hard to talk to him because of this. However, because of them, he knew how to talk to him. Manos was asked by the ruler if the information Lord Guy had asked for was available. I'm sorry about him, the man said. He had formed a group, and he had failed to stop him. The king had no idea what he was discussing. It turned out that the issue was that two 11th rank individuals from their kingdom could now be taken by a low-ranking magician. They had suffered a terrible loss, in his opinion. However, he found it challenging to deal with Guy because he was very obstinate. The king asked for it to be repeated after a pause. Manos had a scheme. He would expel him from the kingdom and stop his group from organizing. The ruler inquired as to whether Guy had any significance for him. The man considered it. When two adventurers of the 11th rank failed to deal with the evil dragon, the king explained that Guy had been the one to defeat it. Has Manos understood yet? He asked. This caught him off guard. He believed the dragon had been killed by Ural and Ryder. He was that guy, Manos realized. The ruler claimed that the report they had given him contained all of the information. Saying he had missed it, the commander begged for forgiveness. He was given a choice between death and demotion by the king. The man was shocked. That was too much for him. He had chosen death, the king decided. Manos refuted it. He ultimately sent him to a small rural town. Guy understood that this was the fate of those who defied the monarch. The ruler would now make the final decision in their case. His willingness to assist was undoubtedly flattering to Guy, but wouldn't it be better to assign this task to someone else? The king retorted that everything was okay and that it was done to stop rumors about them. The ruler wished for their cooperation. Let's get down to business. The boy asked if he could also ask the commander for information about transcendental magic, even though the commander was supposed to gather all the information about the Brotherhood of the Blazing Skies. The king claims that although they made an effort to gather it, it proved to be more challenging than anticipated. What is and is not regarded as transcendental magic is unknown to them. Guy believed that it was simple to tell. Transcendental magic is defined as anything that cannot be explained by current theories of magic. Since they are unable to explain their artifacts using the information they have on magic, all of them can be categorized as transcendental magic. The man understood that they were unable to describe the operation of his artifacts. That proved to be accurate. Greetings from their world. Guy wanted to see what they didn't understand because he was here. They walked into the room. The protagonist claims that the royal treasury was indicated at the entrance. But why did it appear to be a facility for storing trash? It's definitely a treasury, Ural said. Let him examine this artifact, for instance. It was strong enough, in her opinion, to be a national treasure. The man didn't believe it. He referred to it as regular garbage. But Ural spoke with assurance. The jewelry appealed to Iris. He didn't use any ludicrous magic on Guy. In addition, half of the garbage he produced was located here. Iris believed she could keep this glowing stone for herself because it was trash. It was a national treasure, Ural clarified. Guy caught sight of something. He sensed a different magic, despite his weakness. He removed the relic. You can see how the magic is distorted around the object if you look closely. The widely acknowledged laws of magic are unable to explain this distortion. Transcendental magic is what this is. Guy wanted to know what the girl thought. Ural knew. When she worked for the company, she used it. The girl would not recommend using it, but she was certain that it was somehow related to transcendental magic. Through transcendental magic, this artifact helps people become stronger. However, the wearer's soul is altered, making death a very real possibility. This process can only be survived by one person out of every 100. It wasn't such a bad deal, Guy thought. The protagonist proposed to see if he would pass away or live. Guy came to the conclusion that it changes a person's soul while improving their physical attributes. And the chances of survival are only 1 in 100. This opportunity isn't so bad. He made the decision to take a chance. The others were asked not to breathe in the smoke by Ural. This magic was felt by the man himself. That made Iris ill. Even for Guy, Ryder believed it was too much. This was not the magic they used on a daily basis, Ural clarified. The room filled with a foreboding smoke. Regarding Guy's health, Ural was concerned. Your soul can be transformed by the ultimate magic. That's the most accurate way to put it. He is now one step closer to the celestial beings and less human. They had no idea what it meant to be less human. Guy decided to show them. A large spark arose. The guy explained that he compressed the magic so much that pure energy was formed. This is the fusion of primordial magic. Ural saw that he had mentioned learning about this fusion at some point. And now he only needs to snap his fingers to use it? Only a select few can do this, Ryder heard. On the first try, he himself did not believe it would succeed. Guy made the decision to conduct a quick test. What was he thinking of? Ural asked. The guy said it was just fireworks. The others were concerned because the kingdom would vanish from the face of the planet if he lost command of the primordial magic. Guy told them not to be concerned. He won't lose. There was a spark in the sky. Ural believed that he suppressed and released magic. Just keep watching, he said. A gust of wind came up. There, Iris was dragged. The guys had no idea where it originated. The wind was getting stronger. Nobody knew what was happening. According to Ryder, it looks like another one of Guy's magic? Iris asked to stop this horror. The combination of the original magic is this. Guy made it vanish in this way because it is extremely unstable and could blow up at any time. The reason it is completely black is because its gravity is too strong and light cannot escape from it. The guy knew that the ultimate magic would allow him to compress magic so strongly. However, the outcome appears to be far better than he had anticipated. The gravitational pull is so great that light cannot escape. The guys thought he had made a black hole. This is ultimate magic. He liked it. Guy concluded that was sufficient for today. The signs of magic vanished. Ryder was shocked that he could really wield such a terrible power. He didn't know how it worked, but he believed that Guy had become stronger. The protagonist replied that he was right. First, they needed to find more similar artifacts of transcendental magic, and only then learn to control them. Ryder was in favor. He would do everything possible to become stronger. Ural was initially perplexed as to how he had acquired such power. Guy said that it was easy. He had been studying souls a couple of years ago, and it was a lot like wiping out your soul. Why did he need such a thing? The girl asked. The man believed that by doing this, he could rewrite his mark. It sounded a lot like something painful, but Iris didn't understand what they were discussing. Their next objective will be to locate numerous similar artifacts, now that Guy has grown stronger thanks to transcendental magic. However, it appears that those are no longer present. They are awaiting information regarding the Brotherhood in the interim. He then recommends training. Guy inquired about their thoughts on it. Ryder came to the realization that he wanted to see how they fought. Ural is on board. She is eager for more training after learning a lot during their battle. It was his turn to fight, Ryder reminded her. Iris reluctantly stated that she would like to train as well. Guy made the decision that they would begin by putting their abilities and strengths to the test. They would follow the same guidelines as he and Ural. He was pleased to learn that Ryder would come next. Perhaps Iris should be trained first, the main character reasoned. Reluctantly, the girl consented. Her dissatisfaction with the training was apparent to Guy. In response, Iris said she wasn't. They had just taken her by surprise. The following day, she appeared overly tense, so Ural inquired as to her well-being. After saying that everything was all right, Iris questioned whether he would kill her if she didn't try. They didn't understand what she was talking about. Guy had no intention of killing her. He wanted to expel her from the group, the girl said. Guy obviously believed it was best to get rid of her because, as a dragon, she could certainly eat them all. Was she really going to eat them? The guy asked. Naturally, Iris hadn't considered it. Even if she wanted to, she could try, he said, leaning in her direction. The girl reiterated her refusal to eat them with excitement. That's excellent. Right now, Iris is more powerful than any of them. She can also get stronger because she is a dragon. For instance, she is not constrained by things like marks. He had high expectations for her, Ural realized. Iris was pleased. The girl admitted that she was happy. But since she is a dragon, she cannot use magic. Guy suggested starting her training with magic. The girls were surprised. After all, she said that she could not use magic. He claims that employing magic in combat provides a significant edge. He first assigned her the duty of using some sort of spell to destroy that target. Iris was unable to use magic, though. Guy told her to stop talking gibberish. She also has magic in her dragon breath. This was unknown to the girl. It turns out that many dragons think that they cannot use magic, but in fact everything is completely different. He would help her. Allow her to attempt to exhale from the staff. Just remember how she does it in her dragon form and transfer those sensations to the staff. Iris recognized him. She followed his instructions and hit the target. The staff truly breathed fire, which surprised Iris. The man urged her to remember that sensation. She had to do it again now. Iris prepared herself. He knew that the first time might be more difficult for herself. This was not how the girl could leave it. After all, she was a dragon. Iris attempted to use her mouth to strike the target. She believed she had been successful. Guy had not anticipated that she would be successful from the start, let alone on her first attempt. However, in this manner, she was completely unable to see her target. Iris missed, as it happened. She tried a few more times without success. This made her angry. She made the decision that if she got close, she wouldn't miss. Iris destroyed the target. However, according to Guy, this was not training for target destruction. They ought to just work on their magic. Her abilities were amazing, but did she realize that her mouth prevented her from seeing the beam, which prevented her from hitting? The girl responded that it was simpler for her because she was a dragon. The enemy would not anticipate that, Ryder thought, laughing. He was correct, Guy said. They had to make the task more challenging, so they would go on. The next targets were on the move. They were fast for Iris. She tried to hit them. Iris missed all of her targets again. Guy saw that she couldn't see anything because of the shot. She should try with the staff, then. She braced herself, the girl. She would simply burn them all at once if that were the case. Instead of aiming, she chose to just boost her fighting strength. This was the exact opposite of what he wanted to see. Iris was happy that she had been successful. And magic was so handy. She would refer to this spell as Iris's shot. Guy thought it was a good thing she had mastered magic. He still didn't give her any credit for that, though. The girl couldn't figure out why. It turned out that you have to learn to control the magic before you can use that much of it. In a real fight, he didn't think she would hit anyone. Iris was upset, because it was easier for her this way. Guy made the decision to carry out a little experiment. The guy decided to use Ryder. She would go after him. Guy would then be able to evaluate his own strength as well. It was awkward for Ryder to fight a young girl. The main character cautioned him not to be fooled by her appearance. After all, she was a formidable dragon. The guy didn't think he could hurt her even if he spent all his strength. Ryder was unaware of the type of monster she was. The girl made the decision to begin. She fired. Ryder was able to dodge and noticed that it was quite strong. Iris didn't like that. It seemed too simple to him. It was easy to read her actions. He should stop dodging, the girl said, calling it unfair. Her next blow was just enormous. Now let him try to avoid it. Uro became aware that her spell was more potent than before. Not even Ryder could make it through this. Iris feared she had gone too far. Guy was confident in his ability to manage it. When it comes to a critical situation, he has no equal in making a quick decision. Ryder was relieved that the moment had arrived. He would display his full splendor. The man employed his drifting blades technique. Next, he applied a wave cut. Uro was taken aback by his ability to cut the blade spell and avoid the attack. The man was aware that magic could be cut as well. This was unexpected by Iris. Guy was aware that things were not really as they seemed. Such a trick would be impossible for the average person to repeat. Ryder appears to be adding magic to the blade. Does he do it on purpose, I wonder? Theoretically, he blocks the enemy's spells in the same way that Guy does. But trust me, he is capable of doing this, and he probably doesn't even know how it works. It's his turn now. Unexpectedly, he pulled out a piece of candy. Iris received it from Ryder. They enjoy sweets. The girl was pleased by this. She wouldn't shoot with a candy in her mouth, he bet. Guy understood that Ryder had devised yet another strategy to render Iris incapable of doing anything. Iris refused to spit it out. She was unable to use magic, though. Ryder knew she had been apprehended. Abruptly, the girl produced a staff. She was passing magic through it, and Guy could see it. From it, Iris fired. The powerful blow was able to knock Ryder down. Iris realized that he was defeated. She was glad that she had learned to use the staff. Iris's shot reached its limit. Ryder realized that his plan had failed. Guy didn't think so. On the contrary, he helped her develop. She chose to use the staff despite her inability to open her mouth. It was an effective method of forcing her to use it. Guy would never have considered that. Ryder was counting on his victory because he didn't think she could pull it off. Iris looked over at Ryder. "Do you have any more candies?" she asked. He gave one to her. Iris was pleased. "I'm glad to have joined this group." Guy came to a conclusion. They had accomplished their objective for the day since she had acquired the ability to use magic. Something was confusing Uro. What was confusing her was beyond Ryder's comprehension. After all, Iris had become even stronger. Spirits of blazing stars, creatures of the vastness of space. By assuming the power of their vanquished adversaries, they become more powerful throughout their endless lives. Those of them who have triumphed innumerable times are stronger, and more knowledgeable than even the gods. Guy couldn't harm him either. The mana of Ryder is nearly depleted. The man was surprised by the disparity between them. He will have to use their trump card because there isn't any more time. This world needs to be saved by the dark dragon Iris. The girl recommended asking in a more polite manner. Lady Iris was asked to save them by Guy. Agreeing, she struck. The adversary was vanquished. She is unmatched by anyone. Guy realized he had nothing left to teach her. Uro claims that they had high expectations for Iris. Ryder made the decision to host a sweets-filled party for her. The girl liked them. She thought he was a large candy. At the time, Ryder believed his plan was sound. However, it appears that she only remembers him because she thinks of him when she thinks of candy. She had a lot of candy, Iris thought. However, it was only a dream. How unkind. Ryder was also cruel. When she was dreaming something lovely, why wake her up? He claims that she bit so forcefully that marks were left behind. Where were they heading? Ural inquired. Guy merely hoped they would notice something. He wanted to show them something before the real fight started. The observatory was familiar to the girl. They had a very good magic telescope, the man explained. Consequently, they will be able to perceive the power that emanates from the burning star's spirits. They believed him to be referring to the spirits of space. Guy claims that there are a lot of these spirits in space. For more than 1 billion years, they have been engaged in combat. The guys were taken aback. Spirits 200,000 light-years away are visible to them from this location. The man recommended looking. Uro only noticed a gleaming object. These, it turned out, were the burning star's spirits. This was impressive, he thought. He clarified that they have a 200,000 light-year view from here. This is just an incredibly vast distance. And does Uro realize how enormous their power is, given that they can see it from here? I don't understand a lot, the girl said. According to Ryder, Iris will go back to sleep if Guy keeps giving a dull lecture. She wasn't boring to the guy. He was unable to comprehend her actions. Ryder clarified that she bit him whenever she felt drowsy because she somehow connected him to candy. He then made the decision to explain it to them in a way they could comprehend. Iris was unable to comprehend what had transpired. The boys were introduced to the concept of space. He merely projected into their three-dimensional space what they could see through a telescope. A creature of some sort passed by Ural. What was that thing? She asked. They turned out to be the flaming star's spirits. Guy adjusted the dimensions slightly to improve their comprehension. The planet would now be absorbed by him, which roughly matched the size of their world. To Ural's surprise, he swallowed her whole. That was the extent of their power, Guy explained. Other spirits can be found in the vicinity of their planet. However, they won't be any weaker than this. There are many spirits, the guys realized. They are just 200,000 light-years away. This implies that he will be even more powerful by the time he reaches them. Or someone more powerful will absorb him. In the context of space, that is what strength means. And he aspires to gain the strength to oppose them. They have a totally different perspective on what strength is. They still have a long way to go before they can meet them, though. Ryder also agreed. They can't compete with them if they're not prepared. Guy questioned their ability to vanquish even the most resilient spirit. Furthermore, the notion of weakness is highly malleable. The stronger have long absorbed all the weak. They have been fighting and existing for more than 1 billion years, after all. Consequently, transcendental magic is the only method to deal with their power. They must first confront the Blazing Star Brotherhood's transcendental magic. Their human magic is not the same as transcendental magic. Even after they pass away, the spirit's power endures. The corpse of a spirit that had once fallen to their planet was apparently obtained by the Brotherhood. From it, they were able to extract human-compatible transcendental magic, and encase them in artifacts, such as the ones he used previously. They can also mass-produce items because they can imbue them with such power. To put it another way, You have to defeat a smaller spirit that is sealed inside an artifact in order to gain its power. They could learn about the individuals who had been successful in obtaining magic and the artifacts they had made if they were able to locate the Brotherhood's lair. Uro came to the realization that all he wanted was to take them for himself. The kingdom would soon prepare a report for them, she said. If they could locate one of their hiding places close by, that would be great. Guy concurred with her. The king appeared to be in his rooms. He recommended that they visit him. How did he know? Ryder asked. The boy employed magic for detection. Ryder believed that if the security chief knew what he was doing, he would faint. Guy apologized for the interruption and requested permission to enter by teleporting. The king inquired as to whether the lord had discovered anything in his treasury that pleased him. I have, the boy said. One small item that had to do with transcendental magic was present. The king was happy to assist. Long ago, the dragon Lmain would have destroyed his kingdom if he hadn't intervened. However, he refuses to compensate him for his assistance with such a trivial matter. Let him say if he needs anything else. All that guy needs to know is about transcendental magic. The man inquired as to whether the Brotherhood's data had been gathered per his request. The ruler claimed that they were gathering data based on a lair they had previously discovered. They were currently verifying the accuracy of this information. Guy was intrigued by this. That's how the lair was, the king added. Most likely, Lmain caused it to be abandoned. The main character inquired as to the likelihood of discovering something there. It had just been wiped clean, the ruler said. There were almost no traces left. Guy came to the conclusion that no leads existed. The king stated that they were verifying the accuracy of the information for this reason. But the soldiers who were dispatched there never came back. The guys were taken aback. As it happens, he thinks it might be an active lair because the soldiers did not return. Guy made the decision to go there himself. Could the king tell where it was? He asked. As a token of his appreciation for them, the king gave him a map and asked him to accept it. He wanted to at least compensate them for their assistance, even though he felt bad about putting them in such danger. It's not worth it, Guy said. For all the information he had just provided, the man was extremely appreciative. The group left. They should be directly in front of the lair based on the map. Uro wanted to know the king's exact words. The discovery of the Brotherhood's destroyed lair coincided with the appearance of the dragon Lmain. Is it possible that the Brotherhood created Lmain? Guy wasn't sure. His transcendental magic was too small a measure. The man believed that he had just happened to get it. They appeared to have finally reached their destination. 20 meters and 5 kilometers more in that direction. From there, he experienced odd mana flows. If Ryder focused, he could sense it. But he had a very hard time catching anything because it was so far away. There was a silhouette of someone sitting by the tree. Ryder understood Guy's point. There was an oddity about it. There was nothing he could say except that he felt uneasy. They were adept at hiding, Ural observed. Too good. Their mana was not noticeable enough. Furthermore, Ryder found nothing at all. Ural asked the guys if they had noticed them yet, and what they thought. They're not as weak as they believe, Guy says. They are more powerful than the two of them. The boys were taken aback. At that time, Ryder anticipated meeting them. Guy could tell that the man was skilled in combat. The fact that he could already do it surprised Ural. If she attacked in her dragon form, would they be able to see her? Iris asked. Of course they wouldn't notice a huge dragon. Guy shot back cynically. Being human was a better way to fight. He hoped she would adjust to him. If they were stronger than them, Ural wasn't sure they should go to them at all. Guy thought they were a perfect practice target. They don't appear to be going to attack first, so that the men can go greet each other. They've initiated contact, but they're not taking any action. What were they up to, he wondered. They don't appear antagonistic. However, they are also unfriendly. Had they truly encountered a trustworthy battle mage? If not, they would have undoubtedly taken action. Ural looked over at Guy. She asked him if he believed that those who had rejected the organization could be people just like her. Guy considered it. Indeed, that is also very likely. However, they would have undoubtedly taken action. Perhaps he ought to be friendly to them first? Guy chose to face the sorcerer. The main character questioned him about his actions, particularly in such a desolate location. In response, the mage said he was just hungry, and chose to hunt some monsters that could be eaten. 2 bull monsters were over there, according to Guy. They expressed gratitude to him. The monsters were actually a kilometer away. The 3rd mark was his. It was also excellent for long-range assaults. Taking this into account, he could easily murder them from here. He could flee from the monsters, Guy reminded him. The mage would kill them, wouldn't it? The mage claimed that people were rare in this region. She simply couldn't recall ever seeing them. But Guy felt no animosity. He believed that they had indeed discovered a good-hearted battle mage. He was then casting a spell directed at Guy. The man dodged. It hit the bird as a result. The animal was ripped apart. It shocked the boys. The target, a meat grinder, was torn apart from the inside by this spell, Guy realized. He was conscious, the magician saw. He specializes in such spells. And it was by sheer luck that he avoided it. There is no advantage to it as a combat spell. However, such pain is intolerable, making its cruelty unthinkable. Guy inquired as to who it was. He was told that a question cannot be answered with another question. He was the first to ask. However, it is no longer relevant. He'll respond to them. As it happened, it was the Brotherhood of Blazing Stars Logimia. However, since the dead don't require memory, they might not recall. Using a lethal spear of light, the enemy chose to begin with the weakest of them. For Iris, the boys were terrified. By the way, she was hurting. She couldn't figure out why so abruptly. The defensive spell that stopped the killing one caught the enemy off guard. Since Iris doesn't employ defensive magic, Guy found this to be amazing. His spell, which was designed to kill humans, simply lacks the firepower necessary to kill a dragon. The mage hired 2 11th rank adventurers because he didn't think Guy could handle him. The man thought he was aware of Ryder and Ural. Or perhaps Guy misinterpreted something. Because of the first mark, the enemy believed that he was unquestionably weaker than him. From him, Guy sensed a marvelous magic. It seemed to pierce his soul. However, he is still unable to provide a definitive response. The enemy told them to stop avoiding. The meat grinder spell is used by maniacs. He questioned whether the transcendental magic had altered him, or if he had always been this way. Leaving the mage with the boys, he made the decision to test something. This opponent was ideal for training. Let them cooperate to beat him. This is how Iris should fight. They made the decision to fight. Fighting in this form did not appeal to Iris. She was uneasy. Since he used him as a training opponent, the enemy viewed the person with the first mark as a joker. Now, he believed, he would transport them to another planet. Ryder is always quick to respond. Previously, he just hurried ahead. He must now coordinate his actions with his allies though. The adversary paused, awaiting Ural and Ryder's next move. Ryder's defensive blows stopped the enemy. Iris and Ural will strike from afar. For a new group, the coordination is pretty good. Iris used her flame, and Ural used meteor fall. An explosion took place. Ural believed they had hit it. Not in Ryder's opinion. The adversary cast a spell of defense. Guy was also certain. No harm was done to him. The enemy says that girl's magic is pretty strange. Furthermore, the spell of the other one is completely unnatural. He has a lot of experience because he stopped the attack. Ryder would never train with a weaker person. On the inside, the enemy is concerned about himself, despite his intimidating appearance. He appears to have been successful in thwarting Ural's spell. However, he needed a lot of mana to strike Iris. What was it that she desired from a dragon? Despite its seeming weakness, her spell has unparalleled combat power. It is a fairly clever strategy for them to force the enemy to waste mana on defense. Guy, however, didn't believe they could hold it for very long. The enemy would probably simply alter their strategies shortly. The adversary chose to engage and play with them. Does the third mark's owner wish to engage in combat with the fourth? Guy believed it to be merely a provocation. Ryder decided to entertain the enemy because he found it amusing. The battle mage used a lightning ball and called him a fool. That was unexpected for Ryder. Guy was aware that the lightning ball was a spell that involved electricity. It was too strong to kill Ryder, but it wasn't weak either. Paralysis is one of its negative effects. And in close combat, every move makes the difference. The adversary hit Reuters. A lightning ball was used by the adversary. That was unexpected by Ryder. The man understood what he was attempting. Guy believed that Ryder could not be killed by the spell. However, it was sufficient to immobilize him. In close combat, every second matters. Ryder was hit by the enemy. Everyone was terrified for him. The adversary believed he had prevailed. Ryder was able to recover at that point and nearly struck the enemy with his sword, but he avoided contact. It was near. Iris was taken aback. This was one of his tactics, Euro clarified. His body was covered in healing runes. He would most certainly not die if the wound were not lethal. However, runes could have been substituted with sigils. He was clearly in panic, but Guy saw that this was all part of the strategy to fool the enemy. The main character was surprised to learn how skilled he was at battle planning. Regardless, the adversary escaped and would never again fall into such a trap. In particular, because Ryder had healed that wound with too much mana. Most people, he realized, were not as careful as the enemy. They had one win and one loss as of right now. To defend himself against Iris's flame, the adversary had expended a significant quantity of mana. Then he started talking to Ryder, in order to prevent Iris from shooting her own ally. It is common for the enemy's mana to diminish during a battle between mages. The first person to run out of mana loses. The best course of action was to use Iris's spell to deplete the enemy. Guy, however, was skeptical that it would succeed a second time. Who would hit first was the question now. The adversary will not be duped again. He employed a lightning bolt. Guy reasoned that even if Ryder attempted to do the same trick again, the enemy would already be aware of his next moves. Trying again was perfectly acceptable. Ryder, however, was no idiot. Guy understood that Ryder could break the spell by putting magic into his weapon. As it happens, he intentionally caught the lightning the first time. The enemy was unaware of it. However, it wasn't the best idea to let the enemy attack first. Or perhaps he had a fresh idea. In that case, the adversary recommended that they simply slit each other at that precise moment. He was also beginning to make Ryder laugh. Once more, they collided. Iris would hit Ryder after telling Yuri that she could assist. She was at a loss for what to do. What if Ryder doesn't get an advantage? The girl asked herself. After that, she works her magic. They are at a loss for options. Ryder would not have died even if Iris had struck him, but Guy is unaware of the harm. Making such a move in this circumstance is risky. They wish to assist him, but they are unsure of how. Ryder was sure he would prevail in this conflict. He delivered a powerful blow. The opponent who struck Ryder with a lightning ball was unfazed by this. Guy was aware of how strong Ryder and Euro were. However, they have only ever engaged in combat with monsters. It is evident from their fight that they are attempting to settle the matter with a single, powerful blow. When a monster has a lot of health, such attacks work well. All of this is pointless, though, when the opponent has a unique fighting style. Significantly less striking power is their adversary's specialty. Whether or not he is a killer is irrelevant. But he knows how to fight people. This is the worst thing that could happen to Ryder. He will use magic when the time is appropriate, but for now, he is saving mana in close combat by using his sword to block Ryder's attacks. Additionally, Ryder expends a significant amount of mana on every attack. Ryder's mana will soon run out at this rate. Although the fourth mark is excellent, he has the upper hand in this instance. Guy hoped that he himself fully comprehends this. The adversary offered to give up and pass away soon. He has no chance of defeating him. He made the safest decision to end his life. "Stop talking," Ryder said. He cut it in 2 waves. The opponent questioned how it was possible to fail to grasp basic concepts. Ryder was unaware that he would be too exposed following his attack. He had his sights set on the neck. The repeater will not have time to duck. He won't have time to initiate the healing if he is beheaded. It was not good. A lightning ball was used by Ural. Ryder was saved by this. Since he nearly killed him, the enemy became enraged. Ural was thanked by the man. He owes her. The girl warned him against even considering attempting to kill him with a single blow. He is a thinking human, not a mindless monster, after all. Guy pondered whether he could now alter his fighting technique. In fact, Ryder said he understood. The main character observed that he had used a lot less mana. However, he was still unaffected by his attacks. Ryder had just made a different lunge than he had intended, and the enemy realized it. He had succeeded in deceiving him. He can cast spells more frequently if he uses less mana. The man inquired about the experience of fighting against the fourth mark. Everything was clear to Ryder. His pre-crisis thinking skills are simply astounding. The fourth mark's simplest method of winning is to knock him down with a flurry of quick, feeble blows. Ryder kept up his effective behavior. The enemy claims that the man's cheesy tactics won't be enough to defeat him. They exist, Ural reminded them. He will be unable to escape. The enemy found it amusing. Indeed, they have never engaged in combat with humans because they have only ever engaged in combat with monsters. However, they are well versed in their field. A lightning ball was used by Ural. Her spells were incredibly fast. She had prepared them beforehand, he realized. Their goal was to use his own strategies to defeat the enemy. Ryder was going to hit once more. He was warned by the enemy not to underestimate him. A big stone suddenly materialized in front of him. Iris was the one who vomited it. It was pretty good and funny. It was difficult to lift them, but she had the strength to do it without any trouble. Ryder advised them to put an end to their distractions. He employed his cross-flash sword technique. The enemy was hit by Ryder. The boys were happy with their accomplishment. It was surprising that they were able to learn from their mistakes and create a strategy to defeat him, given that they had previously only used brute force. A real fight is, after all, far superior to mere training. It's not quite over though. Ryder believed it was over. He made the enemy tell him everything he knew about the Blazing Star Brotherhood by brandishing his sword. The adversary laughed. They're hilarious. What prevented them from seeing that this was a trap? The bonds of darkness were used by him. He concealed his injuries. As it happens, Ryder's strategy backfired. When cast, this hidden spell becomes active. However, it lacks strength. The men were consequently blinded. Everything proceeded according to his plan. He fears Iris the most, though, based on the fact that she received more mana. He is an excellent killer. It has been a long time since the enemy fought in this manner. He'll send them all to hell for wasting his time. The explosion was fiery. It takes a long time to prepare and uses a lot of mana, but the spell is strong and dangerous. Perfect for eliminating the adversary. They were told to bid life farewell by the enemy. He employed a blast of fire. There is no way to prevent such an attack. The enemy appeared to benefit from it. Even though fighting with the 11th rank is challenging, everything ends up going according to plan, he thought. They weren't even helped by that guy's leadership. No one's leadership can ever make humans stronger. When he suddenly realized the magic, the enemy remembered him and inquired as to his whereabouts. Guy praised the guys and put up a barrier. The fact that a mage with a pitiful first mark was able to block his fire blast infuriated the enemy. The guys expressed their sincere regret for losing to just one person. Iris was unable to see anything, and her eyes were still watering. Guy clarified that their experience was simply insufficient. Fighting monsters is not the same as fighting people. Despite the fact that there were 3 of them, Ural claims that Ryder completed the majority of the work. They were scarcely a team. Guy retorted that it was already excellent training to realize their mistakes. The adversary faced them. He decided to launch another attack after questioning how they could act as though they had vanquished him. The boys were told not to worry by Guy. He would look after her from now on. The fact that the man was only wielding one light sword startled him. He appeared to be the weakest of them all. Therefore, it was pure luck that his barrier survived the explosion. Ural's sword confused him. Guy made the decision to limit his use to spells of their level. It wouldn't be training otherwise. What nonsense he was saying was incomprehensible to the enemy. The main character was shocked that he still didn't understand. Guy was just making himself weaker so he could fight him effectively. Who did he think he was? The enemy asked. Who gave this place to a weakling like him? Even though Guy's spells aren't very strong, his technique is perfect. Allow him to demonstrate what a true fight is if he doesn't like something, and he will take away the limiters. The enemy recognized him right away. He was the first to strike. Guy was a concern for Ural. It was a shadow strike, the man realized. However, he applied to them an enhanced form of the bond of darkness. Despite his conceit, he attempted to murder him before he could take any action. He's a great killer. It was a good blow from below, Guy said. He was not lowering his defenses, and the enemy saw this. The enemy believed that the only way for mages with the first mark to survive was to flee the battlefield all the time. Guy would be happy to engage him in a one-on-one duel. Unfortunately, this was merely training. He would not, therefore, let them merely observe. Now what's the plan? Ural asked. She and Iris were under spells, Guy said. Ryder should just attack and disregard their spells. In this manner, they would complete everything at once. This was unexpected by the guys. Ryder will just attack, Iris will use her flame, and Ural should use the meteorite fall. Guy proposed illustrating the meaning of victory. If he was certain, Ural asked. She doubted their victory, the guy realized. So it came to pass. They had behaved that way before, after all. It would be impossible for Iris and herself to use spells without hurting Ryder if they engaged in close combat once more. What matters is that Ryder fought by himself back then. As a result, they will have less fighting power. They would have such a chance if he could take a step back long enough for them to attack. Guy asked if she thought his strategy was losing. I'm just not sure, the girl replied. Guy claims that if they concentrate on the quantity of attacks, they will deteriorate and the enemy will find it simpler to repel them. This implies that he will choose the ideal time to strike with ease, and he himself will strike with a powerful spell. Taking everything into account, what is the best course of action? Ural considered it. Iris was questioned about it. She recommended murdering him. Guy said he wouldn't get involved in their altercation. Now, using Iris's flame would be their best course of action. It is hard to block and has the ability to destroy magic. The enemy will therefore expend a great deal of mana protecting themselves from it. They must therefore stop him from doing this. The enemy, however, can just avoid it. Iris was asked how to do this by the man. She believed that Ryder ought to try his hardest to absorb the hits. What evil had he done to her? He demanded indignantly. Guy looked over at Iris. She apologized and said she was afraid. It turned out that this was correct. He praised her, which surprised the girl. Guy merely stated that her response was accurate. Iris was content. Ryder believed the man was telling lies. Let me explain, he said. Guy concluded that showing would be simpler than explaining. Logimia was already anticipating their arrival. There, have they completed their negotiations? The day is almost over. In any case, if that guy with the first mark joins them, do they think they can beat him? Guy refused to let his guard down in his place. Yes, he is limited to using simple spells. However, he also breaks the spell that Logimia is now attempting to cast all the time. His keen observational skills were noted by the enemy. Then excellent. He assumed he didn't have to hold back anymore. The group readied itself for combat. Ryder understood that all he had to do was divert his attention. Ural and Iris would use spells on him. It turns out that he would still have to stand until victory even if their spells had an effect on him. In general, Guy said, he had understood correctly. He wouldn't be impacted by them. Let him believe him, and you won't have to worry about that. Everyone was taken aback. Ryder would probably be the one to strike the final blow. He should disregard their spells, as the main character stated, and give it your all in battle. He was not entirely clear to Ryder, but that should be the case if he stated so. He braced himself. Both of them joined the battle. The enemy believed that he had grown more powerful. Logimia would undoubtedly die this time, but Ryder was unaware of it. Guy instructed Ural and Iris to start. There were concerns among the girls about Ryder's well-being. Guy told them not to be concerned. Then they went into combat. They made use of Iris's flame and the meteorite fall. This was unexpected by Logimia. To defeat him, they made the decision to sacrifice their partner. He knew he had to put up a barrier as quickly as possible. He was stopped by Ryder. The adversary retorted that he would also perish without him. Ryder was told to obstruct him and that he was safe, but he had no idea what else was going on. Logimia was aware of the consequences if this kept up. Ryder noticed his anxiety. The man was completely unaffected by the enemy's blow. The enemy was surprised that he was unharmed. He had no idea what was going on. Logimia suddenly became aware of something. They put up a barrier, he believed. However, the person with the first mark did it, not Ryder. The adversary believed that their spells would still be effective despite such a basic barrier. He saw a fresh obstacle. Logimia became aware that Guy was constantly updating his barrier. It was difficult to accept that he was still casting the spell and erecting so many barriers of protection without even slowing down. The initial marks are incredibly slow. It shouldn't be possible for that guy to do that. If you can guess the fight's outcome, it's not as difficult as it seems. Guy didn't think he would use new skills or change in any way, especially since he had even witnessed the enemy fight. The enemy believed it to be absurd. A fight could not be so accurately predicted. It would be unbelievable to him. It might not be possible, but he can do it, Ryder said. And now for Logimia. His wounds have started to slow him down. The next blow was delivered by Ryder. The enemy was eliminated. They succeeded. Ryder felt conflicted. He didn't believe he was that predictable. The time had come to kill him. It was not going to be an easy death for the enemy. Cross, flash, and Ryder's sword technique were employed. The adversary was vanquished. There was a huge explosion. For Ryder, the girls were afraid. Guy assured them he was still alive. Guy was correct. Not even a scratch was given to him. Iris and Ural had each only cast one spell. Ural inquired as to whether he had anticipated this outcome from the beginning. Ryder wondered if Guy had truly foreseen this whole situation. That's how it ended up. After all, he had witnessed their fight before. He was aware of their attacks and behavior. Other than that, it was easy to predict. In response to Ural's query, he acknowledged that he had, in fact, planned out a number of barriers beforehand. It's critical to examine your combat capabilities. Even such basic spells will be very useful if they are aware of their allies' strengths and observe the enemy in combat. He wants Ural to play this part. The girl believed she would never be able to perform Guy's skills. The man was certain that this was due to the fact that she had not yet gained enough combat experience. Furthermore, he was discussing plans for the future rather than the present. Ryder's specialty is close combat because he carries the fourth mark. He therefore suggested that he do just that. Then Iris. She is not appropriate for intricate spells because she is a dragon. The girl understood that she would have to employ powerful yet basic spells. It's accurate. However, they could employ more potent spells if she studied magic theory and improved her mana control. Iris was taken aback. Guy advised her to make a concerted effort to study for at least a month. The girl had no idea what diligent study meant. With the exception of bedtime, he intended to study all day. She would be permitted to eat while studying too. When it comes to magic theory, Ryder is more knowledgeable and comprehends it than the other three. He uses more than just strength in his sword technique. It seems that he developed it using the principles of magic. The runes on his body are no different. Though they are well made, they are based on theories that are regarded as outdated. He excels at paperwork as well. Even though he doesn't appear to be a scientist, he does look like one. They had won at last, and Iris was ready to head home. She was starving. They had only just begun, so Guy did not understand what she was talking about. They came here to locate the lair of the Brotherhood, Ural explained, as well as to steal their magic. Every other habitat they have is deserted. They even assigned a man to guard this one location, which the three of them were unable to do the first time. Somewhere here, he thought, should be the entrance. Iris sensed that something was here even though she couldn't see anything. Ryder finds it hard to tell. The entrance should most likely be underground because Guy did not sense the concealment spells. They will now attempt to use the detection spell. After that, they'll check to see if anything is visible. Guy cast the spell. Ural was taken aback by the vast area beneath their feet all the time. The main character believed that the lair was constructed beneath the previous structures. Ryder is responsible for the remainder since the entrance has been located. He assisted in his release. They descended inside. This was the exact appearance of the location where Ural was. The subterranean facilities were only accessible to upper management. Ryder sensed that there was no one alive here. Guy concurred. No one was found by the detection spell either. Iris was pleased. Therefore, there was nothing to fear. Iris was struck by what turned out to be a trap, which pinned her to the wall. They feared for her. Iris looked over at Ural. She said that if they had informed her about them beforehand, it would have been much better. Ural expressed regret. Iris said that since she was a dragon, there was no need to worry. Still, it was a bit disagreeable. Whoever had set them up, Guy realized, had most definitely not expected a dragon. Despite its appearance, this entire path is actually filled with traps. Guy will first erect a barrier for their protection, after which they will proceed. Numerous traps were confirmed to be present. Even though there were many traps here, Ryder believed that magic was not necessary to overcome them. He agreed with Ural. Compared to the fight they had up there, they appear much easier. Given that they left a killer up there, it seems strange to assume that traps are the primary objective here. Their sole purpose is to slow them down. As they entered, they became aware that a barrier stood in their way. They investigate the lair of the Brotherhood. They come to a door with a barrier at the end of a hallway lined with traps. It appears to be safeguarding something of value. However, Guy's intuition tells them it isn't. Ryder can assist if they wish to break it. Ural questioned whether all of this was unquestionably done to keep out invaders. Iris wanted to know what this door held. She hoped it held food or treasure. Guy, however, saw that the door did not appear to be in a storage room. He should break down the door, Ryder advised. Guy stopped him and told him that he would never do that himself. It wasn't strong enough to act as a barrier. It might also be a trap, the guy said. The barrier had some very odd magic on it. Ural believed it to be a curse. It wasn't like him, Guy was certain. However, there must be a gadget tuned to such magic if that is the case. He asked them to wait while he tried to find out. Guy employed magic detection. The object was located by the spell. He claims that a mana compression device is located there. Ural was taken aback by his ability to detect it from such a feeble mana flow. These kinds of traps are frequently found in locations such as these. The trap will activate and blow up everything here if the magical connection between the door and the device is broken. The thought of having to bid farewell to all the treats inside made Iris unhappy. The trap has already triggered, Guy said. About 10 minutes remained until the explosion. Ryder inquired as to how it operated. The door was still untouchable. Because of that killer upstairs, Guy said. They simply cut off this device, which appears to be receiving another signal from the outside. The guys knew they had to leave this place as soon as possible. If they had 10 minutes or so, Ural asked, how could they get out? Iris said she could change into a dragon. On her back, they would all soar. Ural commended her for this thought. Guy wanted to say something. Ural inquired about the issue. They had to get out fast, so he proposed using magic. Iris was on his side. Ural said he was sorry. She didn't think he wanted to run because of how composed he appeared at that precise moment. Guy said he was sorry. He simply reasoned that there was no need to hurry anywhere because they had roughly 10 minutes. Iris screamed because she didn't think she would fall out of the portal. Guy, it turned out, had put up a wall. Ural was clueless about their location. Look there, Iris said. They could see the lair's entrance in front of them. Why he had teleported them here was a question Ural raised indignantly. This is where they were meant to leave. In response, the man said that everything was good. He refused to allow anything to blow up. This location was a great place to learn about the Brotherhood. Numerous hints regarding them and their work should undoubtedly be present. Ural believed he would teleport them away by breaking it. The protagonist made use of the excavation's protective wall. The spell caused a large number of birds to appear, which the guys were not prepared for. They got to work digging. Ryder became aware that they were excavating the ground. What they were pecking at was vanishing, Ural saw. She thought they were keeping them safe. That's what happened. Storage magic is what it is. Things are taken apart, put in a designated area, and then put back together there. However, it is highly costly in terms of mana. Although he was speaking as though everything was so easy, Ural realized that this was not the case. Guy clarified that the lair would have to endure severe hardship if they were to halt or destroy the device. Additionally, they would have nothing left over if they lost the information. It never occurred to Ural that storage magic could be used in this way. According to Ryder, it was beneficial when items weren't kept in pockets. They unearthed the gadget. 5 minutes or so remained until the explosion. The group went over to the gadget. Ural recognized the appearance. Iris became aware of how gloomy and disagreeable the magic within appeared. It reminded Ryder of the one Guy had shown them in the treasury. Primordial magic fusion. Yes, exactly. He had complete control over everything there. And everything is about to blow up right here. Guy proposed taking it apart. The device will not explode if the magic is carefully released. The precision with which this device is constructed is remarkable. Apparently, there was no intention to blow this place up. Originally, it could have been applied to other situations where the primordial magic was needed. Guy inquired as to whether Ural had ever seen anything similar. So the girl believed. Once there was. Most likely, something similar occurred in the lair where she was. The purpose of its creation was to extract the primordial magic and transfer it throughout your body. It was meant to strengthen the owner and have an impact on the soul. That was all she heard at the time, anyway. To put it briefly, these kinds of devices were made to infuse a person's soul with primordial magic. The soul and personality would be severely distorted, but for a short time, great power would be granted. She was well informed, Guy noted. The Brotherhood's members had discovered a way to strengthen them. This had once been one of his experiments, Ural said. In the end, Guy's experiments were constructed in a different way. The soul is also impacted by transcendental magic. There are some similarities between transcendental magic and this device. He inquired as to what she believed would occur if a soul that was already corrupted was subjected to transcendental magic. Ural was unable to imagine it. She believed it would be too much for the soul to bear. But what if he claimed that all the flaws in the soul could be made up for by transcendental magic? You had a good chance of becoming stronger if you were able to absorb it. Iris looked over at Ryder. She claims that she may unintentionally release her flame when she sneezes. He now inquired as to her sincerity. She can release Iris's flame if she sneezes right now. Ryder felt frightened. Now they don't require Iris's flame. She sneezed before he could finish, sending a flame directly to the device. Everyone was surprised by this. Ural and Guy put up barriers. Guy was not happy. Iris apologized profusely and felt ashamed. The device appeared to be operating without any issues. He was frightened by her. It never occurred to him that Iris's flame would be so flawed. The gadget broke all of a sudden. Iris let out a horrified scream. Ural became aware that the device's mana was becoming unmanageable. There was too much mana, Ryder saw. This isn't good. The transcendental enchantment persisted. Ural will attempt to create a barrier to keep it out. The pressure was so great that she couldn't contain it. Despite her efforts to strengthen her defenses, the mana always manages to get through. Ural made an effort to maintain the barrier. The transcendental force became uncontrollable and proved to be more potent than she was. They must pull back. Guy was grateful to Yuro for reducing her speed. It was very beneficial. He is responsible for the rest. What he was thinking was not clear to the girl. She surmised that Guy intended to use transcendental magic to compress the mana. That was exactly it, he said. He would restore the device to normal if he could regain control and compress the mana. All of the mana was being absorbed by the fusion. Consequently, the transcendental mana vanished. He had regained the equilibrium of the apparatus. The device could be used again if the original mana were brought back here and fixed. Yuro would never have believed that it could be subdued. Guy answered that he had done it once before. It would have been hard for him without that experience. It made Iris feel sorry for her. She pledged to exercise greater caution. Guy faced her. He inquired as to whether she now realized the significance of mastering her own magic. To control her mana, she should put a lot of effort into her studies. Iris vowed to exert every effort possible. Guy was relying on her. Anyway, Iris's fire had nothing to do with what had just transpired. The gadget had just malfunctioned. Guy recommended going to see what was inside since he believed it was time to complete the excavations. They looked over what the Brotherhood had left behind. Yuro claimed that despite using detection magic, they were unable to uncover anything of value. The lack of food and treasure here infuriated Iris. This burned fragment of something might be a document, Ryder thought. Unfortunately, though, it was totally burned. Guy could have cleaned it up if it had turned to ash, but this ash is so fine that it cannot be cleaned up. Yuro was shocked to learn that he could make things out of ashes. This place is just trash. He was surprised to see how cautiously the Brotherhood was leaving their shelters. A mana compression device is all that's left. It is clear that the explosion was not part of the assassin's plan given their skill level in protecting the base. The assassin's skills are far superior to those of a dark dragon and 2 11th rank adventurers combined. His defeat is presumed to be merely one of the calculations that the Brotherhood may have made. They would have quickly removed the device and moved their experiments to another location if he hadn't been killed. This was true, Ryder said. It all makes sense when you consider how the traps were set up. Personally, Yuro didn't think they would learn anything about other shelters from this device. Guy also didn't think so. To perform experiments on souls, this apparatus was required. Researching the power of the soul was the goal of the Brotherhood's study of transcendental magic. As he previously stated, compressed mana can distort the soul. You can become stronger if the fusion of such mana is successful, but there is also a significant risk that your soul and personality will be broken. Souls that have been twisted in this manner, however, respond to such magic in different ways. If the Brotherhood actually experimented with this device, they would do the same and produce a unique distorted soul. Based on how such a soul would respond to the surrounding mana distortion, they could then look for their haven. However, this account comes with no guarantees. Ryder considered employing this technique to locate them. He figured they had considered this alternative as well. What about the experiment? The man inquired as to whether he was considering performing the procedure on a living thing. Iris believed they wanted to tell her that since she had caused them so much trouble, she should accept responsibility and volunteer. Guy clarified that Iris's soul differed from a human's because she was a dragon. He asked her to relax and had already taken care of everything. Iris was relieved. A better alternative exists. In addition, the man studied the soul. This is a magically created replica of a human soul. We refer to it as a pseudo-soul. Try using the device on this thing, he said. The idea of using magic to create a soul was beyond Ryder's comprehension. Although Guy spent a lot of time and money creating it, this method is superior to using a human. Based on the information provided, the compression ratio ought to be precisely this. They will receive the same qualities as other shelters if they adhere to these guidelines. The soul was impacted by the magic. Consequently, the soul vanished. Yuro believed the experiment was a failure. Utilizing a specialized mana compression device to inject mana into a human pseudosoul that has been magically created, they will be able to locate additional Brotherhood shelters if they can replicate the special distortions of this apparatus. The experiment appears to have failed. The opposite was true. This is the pseudosoul's central core. All they required was the device's magical distortion. and they succeeded in obtaining it. All they have to do now is locate the same distortion. The underlying principle of all of this, as well as how they will look for the distortion, is not fully understood by the guys. Guy made the decision to wear familiars. He created them with the capacity to look for the same distortions in the soul. Allow them to search the kingdom and its neighboring areas first. Even his search techniques differ greatly from the ones that are typically used. He will have to wait because he did not anticipate them being so close. While they waited, Guy proposed that they eat. Reading a book on the theory of magic was the reason for this lunch. Iris said she would try. The man inquired about their progress in reading the book he had given them on the theory of magic. If the guys didn't understand something, they could tell. So far, nothing special, Ryder retorted. The book was pretty challenging, but after you looked closely at the content, it started to make sense. He was holding a book that contained the most recent magical theories. He studied everything and was aware of the distinctions between traditional magic. Ural inquired about a thorough synopsis of this book. According to Guy, this book contained magic collections that were composed a few hundred years ago. It was the best book of its kind and contained no theoretical errors. It wrote about the power of spells Ural saw. It claims that she has already reached her limit and cannot go any higher, but his strength is greater than anything this book has to say about her. Guy requested that you read it carefully. Everything ought to be explained below. The young lady located the quantity of mana that can be used to recreate a spell. The main character interprets this as indicating that this was the previous limit. Magic is evolving quickly. Furthermore, the old theories become illogical as new ones emerge. Yuri got it. She used to believe that practice was more crucial, but now she sees the importance of theory as well. Learning all of this and putting it into practice will be challenging. Guy inquired about Iris's health. She's on the 3rd page now. Guy was taken aback. Even though the table of contents comes in second, the cover comes first. She claims that this book is challenging. She was reading Royal Academy of Sidonia's Introduction to Magic for Beginners, for elementary school pupils in the 1st grade. Guy was unaware of the existence of a school that taught magic to 1st graders. It was a textbook from an esteemed academy, Ryder clarified. Nor would he say it was particularly simple there. The main character reasoned that since it was intended for 1st graders, there ought to be just enough material for kids her age. Birds suddenly flew to them. The familiars had returned. Quicker than he anticipated. Guy spread the map out. The bird indicated the location. Here, there was a response. Nothing had existed there for a century or more, Ryder recalled. This was Orden's kingdom. Although it appeared to be a state, it wasn't. Guy realized, and he wanted to add that although they had a name, the state had long since vanished. That's what a band of bandits called it. It is the world's worst place. He is unable to describe the current situation because information about them does not transcend the boundaries of their state. This worked to their advantage, Guy realized. Why? Ural inquired. The man clarified that there wouldn't be any worldwide scandal if they destroyed everything there. This was just what Ural thought it was. States that are adjacent cannot meddle. Ryder came to the realization that he had made the decision to eradicate everything from the planet. Nearby is the kingdom of Sidonia. The border is this gorge. Guy was asked if he knew this place by Ural. Why do you think so? He asked. The girl just made an assumption. Guy wondered if he had ever fought there before. Has the gorge always existed? He asked. They say that Guy's attack magic created it, but Ural was unable to confirm. It is known as the 12th Guy Gorge for this reason. He questioned why the 12th, feeling that he had gone a little too far. Is there another 11 like it? As it happened, there were, and numerous locations were given its name. It would be difficult to recall all of the Guy Gorges because they were present from the 1st to the 12th. He questioned whether 13 or more could exist. In case he was unaware, Ryder stated that it was the most widely used name worldwide. Gorge of Guy. Ural started enumerating the plain and reservoir of Guy. Guy was perplexed as to why they were naming something after random people. Is it because Guy was involved in all of these places? Ryder asked. He had heard that the main character's adventures had put cartographers in a challenging position 2 centuries prior. Iris pondered the identity of his adversary in those days. If we take the period 200 years ago, then the dragon. the man reasoned. She was aware of it. His sympathies were with the cartographers. They had been troubled by his magic. He would try to use it more carefully from now on. He made the decision to go on. He said there was a remote possibility that it was a hideout for the Brotherhood. Ural proposed assuming control of the kingdom. Ryder concurred. His goal was to make it the 13th Guy Gorge. Ural believed there was already such a thing. They went through the portal. The fact that this was the kingdom of Orden was unbelievable to Ryder. All he could see was farmland. Here, Guy clarified, a teleportation ban was applied. The distance to the city center was now roughly 5 kilometers. Plans changed, but he still intended to launch a surprise attack. Guy proposed using stealth magic to get closer. This place was quite quiet. They appeared to be settlers searching for land, Ryder observed. He was at a loss for words to adequately describe them. The man questioned him about his belief that the Brotherhood's shelter was in the area. Guy pointed out that they wanted to conceal something because they wouldn't have set up teleportation in that manner. They were told not to relax by a stern voice. For work, one man was abusing his slave. He will turn into fertilizer if he refuses to work. It wasn't that quiet here, Ryder said, retracting his statement. Ural understood that this place was dominated by slave labor. Those currently employed may be abducted individuals. Her words. They could have been settlers, Guy realized. But the Brotherhood took them under control. Iris requested authorization to beat him. She would not tolerate the ridicule of those who created confections. They informed her that they would lose their cover if they killed him. Let's just put him to sleep, please. Just as he was about to strike the slave, Guy's magic caused him to doze off. They would liberate them by demolishing the shelter if this was truly a brotherhood. The men went over to the castle. Ryder inquired as to whether the familiar's indicated location was indeed this one. And the same machine was inside a person whose soul was warped. There could be no error, Guy reasoned. The gates were guarded by 2 combat mages. And extremely strong battle mages. As a result, their disguise would be useless. What would they do? Iris asked. That, Guy said, was clear as day. They would accuse them of war. A teleportation block was used by Guy. Ural thought he had used it. He did, the man said. The same one that stood at the kingdom's entrance. It only prohibits him from teleporting outside rather than inside. Information gathering is their aim. They must also block all escape routes so that nobody can get out. And Ural knew what he meant. He also added the underground passages in this shelter to the spell's scope. The guards became aware that the barrier was their creation. They declared an attack by the enemy. They would all be killed by the magicians. That they would actually come and kill them shocked Ryder. However, how can he discover the cause of the assault? Ural clarified that the Brotherhood had never been founded with good intentions. Such attacks were nothing new to them. The members employed a flaming arrow, an ice blast, and a thunderball. Ryder made the decision to handle them. He employed lightning strike and Ryder's sword technique. Their magic was broken by him. Guy saw that with a single blow, Ryder had destroyed their magic. When there is a significant disparity in strength, this occurs. The adversaries knew they had to back off because this was an 11th rank swordsman. Guy was taken aback. They took great care to protect their information when they issued the order to retreat. They couldn't leave Ural so easily. The members of the Brotherhood witnessed the ranged magic. Iris will not pardon those who make fun of confectioners. They made use of Iris's flame and the meteorite fall. Ryder inquired as to whether they were certain they were suppressing their power. They would have explored every possibility if you had given them an additional minute. Guy asked if it was possible to take them prisoner. Any information would be greatly appreciated. If circumstances permitted, Ural would. However, he ought to be aware that the Brotherhood has a policy against suicide. The fact that they were all prepared to commit suicide surprised Ryder. Ural clarified that they had lost their free will and been brainwashed. All they had to do to survive was to follow the rules. Guy came to the conclusion that they would have committed suicide if they had known they couldn't get away. The guys would then get ready beforehand, in order to avoid damaging anything. It was a meteorite falling, Ural said. This was it, Guy said, but he had revised the formula, and he had slightly changed it. The spell made it to the surface. He had used freezing magic, Ural believed. As it happened, It wasn't exactly so. Guy had just frozen the spot where the meteorite had fallen. Blocks of ice formed on the surface. Things and people are more prone to breakage and damage when frozen. Iris had grown chilly. She just didn't have enough muscles, Ryder clarified. Guy saw the transmission magic used by the enemy. The enemy apparently chose to employ transmission magic. The fact that the communication transmission was for them surprised Ural. As it happened, Guy merely intercepted the signal. Information is also a part of negotiations. They inquired as to whether every item was classified. This was confirmed in a response that also mentioned that, if anything, the amount of information that leaked was reduced. This meant that someone was still alive, Ural realized. Guy agreed. They succeeded in stopping the freeze. They are also very capable and strong when it comes to it. They cannot use the transmission so irresponsibly because they are not professional. Their message turns out to be a typical trap. Guy discovered more magically gifted men below, but they were far stronger than the ones he found now. Someone with distorted mana still exists. They might be searching for this one. What would you do? The guys asked. Guy proposed to accept their invitation. This passage is located exactly here. They left to confront their rivals. Inside, everything was frozen. The floor was icy and slick as well. Iris claimed that they could easily emulate her if they were skilled ice skaters. How would she break? Guy asked. Iris lost her composure. The trap worked toward her as she fell. For her, Ural felt fear. Iris was hurting. A coward is one who attacks without warning. She had fallen straight into their trap, Guy realized. Is she really in that much pain? He asked. In response, the girl said it was unpleasant but not that bad. The enemies thought it was a protective barrier and were shocked that she was still alive after the direct hit. Guy faced them. You mean the trap didn't work? Then, he hoped, they were carrying secret materials. They came for information, the leader believed. He advised him to attempt removing it from himself. However, let them remember that they will receive nothing if they fail to defeat them all. Guy estimated the number of opponents at around 50. They would burn any information and materials if the odds were against them. Or they might take that action. Guy made the decision to take it himself if she wouldn't let him. The individual employed object movement. He accepted the information. The opponents were surprised at how easily such a barrier of protection could be breached. And in addition to the barrier destruction, he employs a very powerful item move. Guy didn't think this was particularly noteworthy. Simply put, they were too frail. This infuriated the adversaries. They were told to murder them. He gave them permission to use the demigod form because he was in charge of this shelter. The adversaries readied themselves for combat. A terrifying mana that appeared familiar caught the guy's attention. No error occurred. This magic was transcendental. Guy became increasingly curious about them. The adversaries were getting ready to strike. Ural's mana increased significantly. Guy was asked by Ryder if this was typical. The man offered to have a look because he believed they wanted to use transcendental magic to get stronger. There was magic among the adversaries. They were furious. Iris's foes looked like demons. The guys were taken aback. Demons are creatures that exist in this world. Despite their human-like appearance, they think differently. They have yet to be identified, and they are utterly antagonistic to other people. What causes demons was Ural's guess. Guy was unaware. Compared to all the demons he had previously faced, they are somewhat different. Here he would have to look for signs of transcendental magic. In any event, Ryder reasoned, they must all be calmed down before they can search. However, there are a good number of them here. The observer should be commended for not fleeing. One of the individuals was engrossed. Guy was aware that the soul is altered by transcendental magic to become stronger. This man's soul apparently could not take it any longer. Ryder saw that he was still evolving. Ural inquired as to his next course of action. What she was thinking about, he said. She knew more, he believed. He was totally possessed by the magic. He became demon-like. He felt his soul merge with the transcendental magic. Indeed, it appears that this is the process by which demons are made. Ural was correct. It wasn't time to think, the girl thought. Guy concurred. He was not particularly strong, though, despite his appearance. She was taken aback. The demon grew enraged. It appears that when you're changing, you can't keep your thoughts straight. And if this action turns out to be an attack on your allies, what good is it? However, Guy believed that this might be because transcendental magic is hard to use. Ural proposed going back to them from her thoughts. This was seen by the enemy as yet another failure. The claws caught Guy's attention. He can alter and betray shape by using transcendental magic. The demon was enchanted by the overseer. With a single blow, he killed him, despite the fact that he was allied. Guy realized. Therefore, you can alter the body by distorting the soul. Thus, they employ transcendental magic in this way. The supervisor expressed regret for keeping them waiting. Nothing, Guy said. He showed him something really fascinating in exchange. Now, though, what? Will he prove himself in combat? Guy was impatient. The enemy saw how much they desired it. Ural looked over at him. Despite his strength, there are a lot of opponents. Guy broke down their barrier and said, "Don't worry. They will flee if the adversaries prove to be more formidable." He was wise, Ryder observed. The overseer claimed that they were utterly terrified because they were eagerly anticipating a fight with him. Nothing can be done if that is the case. He'll hold them accountable for their invasion. The barrier is very strong, and he was unable to overcome it. Guy believed the opposition was more powerful. "Please don't look down on him," he said. After a considerable amount of time, the overseer managed to partially penetrate his barrier. The enemy gave the order to attack. All of them leaped onto the barrier. It wasn't bad, Guy noticed. The observer wanted to know how long he would remain calm. He was asked to raise the barrier by Ural. "Why?" the man asked. He acknowledged his disappointment. The guys couldn't figure out why. Transcendental magic had always been seen by Guy as a means of enhancing magic. However, they only employ it as a weapon. Not that it wasn't good, but regular magic would be even better if this was their strongest level. Ryder came to the conclusion that their enemy's weakness was the reason for his disappointment. That's how it ended up. After all, Guy had always had great expectations for transcendental magic. Ural didn't believe that conversations were necessary at this moment. Iris recalled that he possessed similar magic and questioned why he was unable to outshine them in strength. Guy had completely forgotten about it. He then desired to attempt to mimic them. He cast their spell again. The opponents were taken aback. Ryder was concerned about Guy's eventual normalcy. He would, the man replied. In particular, using this hand in daily life would be extremely inconvenient for him. Magic supports many of the human body's functions. And mana is what magic is made of. It appears that when the Brotherhood distorts the soul, the mana supply is diminished. Consequently, the body is strengthened and a portion of the soul is consumed by the transcendental magic. However, when you can give up mana, why give up the soul? However, the transformation will be undone if the body's mana flow is restored. Ryder comprehended. This is intriguing. He still has a lot to learn about magic, he thought. The adversaries had no idea who he was. He cannot be left alive, the overseer is certain now. The barrier has been destroyed. He gave the order to kill him and return the stolen items. Guy was called by Ural. There was a spark between the Brotherhood members. They were pushed away by a wave that appeared. Guy thought their behavior was weak. The man inquired as to whether he was attempting to fight at all. Instead of attacking everyone at once, the overseer gave the order to kill him. Guy had no trouble with them. And he was starting to learn how to make use of this ability. Everyone who attacked him was killed by the man. The enemy found it difficult to believe. He used this power flawlessly, as the guys saw. Not a single pointless motion. That is not what Guy would have said. Instead, his body moved by itself. They were taken aback. Even though he expended mana on the transformation and his power grew, he is unable to fully control it due to transcendental magic. If their objective is to swiftly teach the soldiers how to fight, then this is not a bad thing. Because he uses the power of a demigod flawlessly, the Brotherhood members believed that he had stolen their equipment. He was the one who ruined their test lab then? The overseer believed they were attempting to become demigods. He figured they didn't realize he didn't want to explain anything to them. Guy is now aware, however, that they stay in touch with each of their shelters. He needs to remember this information. Anyway, this power isn't as strong as he believed. Guy nearly hit Ural. He became aware of this power. She also despises people. According to the man, this transcendental magic views people as adversaries. Demons are antagonistic toward humans because of this. He also attempts to use transcendental magic to cast spells. However, there seems to be some interference between his mana and the mana of transcendental magic. As a result, spells now require more time to cast. Moves by itself. Hostile to people. Longer casting period. Once more, Guy is let down. Most of it he already understood. As a result, the experiments should be stopped. His demigod power was gone, the observer thought. Real magic is far superior to such a pitiful imitation. He gave the order to murder them. They were attacked by the adversaries. Guy inquired as to whether they were aware that transcendental magic now controlled them. In a real fight, do they really use such a disadvantage? Guy politely sidestepped the assault and inquired about his thoughts. What was happening was not credible to the observer. Even Guy with the first mark had enough time to cast a spell because they lack self-control. But it was much more fun to use your own magic. The use of transcendent magic was too challenging. Quantum explosion was his method. The enemy was taken aback by their defeat at the hands of a demigod. Guy claimed that the entire explanation was that this was a typical disparity in magical knowledge. The boys were told to remain motionless. He would either kill her or they would return what they had taken. They saw that he had the courage to hold her captive. Guy did not believe he would want to return to the battlefield, but he did let one escape. He showed his claw to Ryder. Guy told them not to be concerned. Iris will be all right. He inquired as to the subject of their whispers. They knew he was going to murder their comrade, didn't they? Guy's desire to inquire as to whether he was aware of the person in his grasp. If she became a dragon, I pondered how surprised he would be. Iris questioned why the enemy was attempting to give them orders. The enemy was unaware of their problems and the loss of their common sense. Let them enjoy the results of their actions if they choose not to. His claw broke as a result. By the way, Iris was in pain. She drove the adversary out. The observer was surprised that Iris threw a grown man so easily. Is she not a child? What kind of monster is she? Technically speaking, she is a monster. However, Guy realized that the majority of opponents only consider her outward appearance. He should defend himself, Iris advised. She hit once more. The enemy was taken aback and baffled as to how she was able to gather so much mana. They were discussing a demigod who was still less powerful than a dragon. The only person still alive was him. Guy recognized this feeling and wondered what he would do. It's peculiar. He appears to be rushing to get something done. However, Guy does not sense any movement in his mana. What does he intend to accomplish? Does he wish to let his guard down? If that is the case, he must have a secret weapon that he can use against them. Guy urged everyone to back off. The boys were able to avoid the strong spell. None of them were hurt. Ural inquired as to what that was. Guy thought it was a spell of cutting. The beauty of this attack lay not so much in its strength, but in its lightning speed. You can usually sense the movement of mana through your body when you cast a spell. But he completed it in a flash. He questioned whether that was transcendental magic as well. Guy faced him. He claimed he couldn't recall the last time he had to avoid falling under a commoner's spell. It had to be extreme magic, he was certain. The man couldn't figure out why the enemy had stopped talking. Ryder thought he was planning another assault. Iris was concerned about this. They should be alert and ready to dodge, Ural thought. They were unable to protect themselves from such an attack. Guy agreed. He was unable to protect himself from it either. Guy had erected a barrier, but it had been destroyed by the blast. Ural believed he had it with him at all times. This was confirmed by the man. Who knows when they'll attack you, after all? He always had it with him because of this. Guy offered to demonstrate a few more of these tricks for him. His weapon was a spatial spear. There are 2 methods in this spell. Additionally, there won't be any dust left over from a dragon if you keep things simple. The man inquired about what he had done. It won't work on him, as he had anticipated. The spear splintered. He used only his mana to repel Guy's technique. The enemy is now powerful and has perfected his tactics. The men started to worry. Guy used an enormous amount of mana in his spell. They are helpless even though they have all raised the barriers. Guy was surprised to find a deserving opponent. The last one seemed to have been a century and 30 years ago. The fact that all those guys had lost surprised him. They were referred to as demigods. But at the time, who was he? He had, after all, kept his old look unlike them. And he is just overpowered by this power. The guys were frightened by him. He was able to pique the interest of the enemy, who was unaware of his identity. "Don't worry, Guy might not respond," he said. In any case, the Watcher would soon die. Such power came at too high a cost, after all. He assaulted the men. Ryder's sword was broken by his power. Guy's barrier was able to reflect the blow from the enemy. The man saw that he was powerful. A lot more powerful than a demigod. The enemy also saw that Guy could block his attacks but no longer used extreme magic. Even the absence of oxygen or mana suction has no effect on the protagonist, who attempts to kill him without the use of a spell while defending himself with a barrier. Guy requested that none of the three climb inside. Allow Iris to transform into a dragon, capture them, and take off with them. They must keep as far away from him as they can. The guys said they were truly weak here and apologized for being a burden. Iris transformed into a dragon. Guy was asked to look after himself. The enemy thought everyone else who knew about the ultimate magic should perish. Guy shielded his friends because he could not allow them to perish. The enemy was unaware of his identity. Then, he concluded, he would have to murder the man first. Guy is a skilled magician. However, he is weak in close combat. The main character asked the first Mark what he wanted. But don't worry about him. He's long since handled close combat. This was not bad, the enemy observed. He struck again with assurance. As it happened, Guy had anticipated this kind of action. The enemy appeared to have never engaged in combat in this configuration before. Otherwise, the main character would be unable to justify his use of such force in self-defense. Transcendental magic did not appear to be all-powerful after all. He was referred to as annoying by the enemy. He won't flee now, though. It was unclear to Guy what he was discussing. Iris and the others were merely buying time for their escape from the man. He thought Guy wanted to run, but why? The enemy must return their belongings, he realized. They were in his magic storage, but Guy said he was sorry. The enemy believed that once the man died, he would be able to take them. "Do you think that would work?" Guy asked. His barrier would be impenetrable to the enemy, even if he died. It was obvious that he wanted to take Guy's place. It was therefore significant. He wasn't attempting to take it away from him, though. Guy questioned what he had planned. What was he waiting for? The man asked. Was he considering a way to get into his vault instead? Or was he considering if his death would make it simpler for him to do so? Guy believed they were already far away and did not sense their presence. His friends were already safe, and the enemy knew it. He had been waiting for him for too long, Guy thought. "No, I was just wondering why I was wasting time," the enemy said. Since Guy had released his comrades, he presumed that he held them in high regard. The guy claimed that the enemy was unaware of just how much. He advised them to go on since they had nothing left to lose. The adversary concurred. He was ecstatic because he had already outperformed a demigod in power. Because he could fight for his own enjoyment, he was happy that they had met fatefully. The enemy offered to fight at full strength even though they were unsure of who was stronger. The fact that Guy was the type of guy who only enjoyed fighting surprised him. The enemy had the same opinion of him. Guy acknowledged that he was that way. And he finds indescribable joy in defeating a formidable foe he has never met. He was hit by the enemy, who warned him not to be foolish. Guy believes that he will now permit him to carry on talking? He claims that he prefers killing to fighting. Killing enemies is the nicest thing in the world. Guy refused to back down. He was aware that the moment he relaxed his defenses, the enemy would strike. He also discovered long ago that he enjoyed killing. The man inquired as to whether that was the case with every Brotherhood member. To be honest, though, Guy was taken aback by his attack. The enemy was obviously skilled at killing, he conceded. He was a very good fighter for a killer. He was not a killer, the enemy retorted. He simply excelled at everything. And Guy is now learning everything he can. He's already bursting with strength. He is now certain that the man will lose. The adversary employed a potent spell. Guy was taught a series of blows as well as the magic of soul defeat. The adversary overestimates his own power. Guy wouldn't have believed that he could kill the enemy by getting a little stronger in his place. The barrier was too strong for him to overcome. The enemy assured them that the man would undoubtedly perish. He can't even stop his magic. After all, nothing can truly protect the soul. Guy put a finger to his clenched fist. The adversary was unable to accept it. "Where is his death?" the main character inquired. Attacks from the enemy are getting progressively weaker, as well as his power. It appears that he can't use a lot of spells at once. His time is running out, it turns out. The enemy was taken aback. Guy claims that in a one-on-one battle, he is strong. He is still a typical killer though. However, the man chose to express gratitude. Why was a mystery to the enemy? Guy clarified that he hadn't fought in this manner in a very long time. It was his turn to strike now. While they were engaged in combat, the enemy believed Guy was getting ready to cast a spell. How could the first mark have given him such strength? The main character questioned the enemy's belief that he was wasting time allowing his friends to flee. One of his most potent destruction magic spells is this one. Following it, no stone will remain on another within 10 kilometers. Guy's blade was atomic. He questioned whether the adversary could make it through. He was labeled insane by the enemy. Guy advised him to stand up for himself. The enemy was unable to protect himself from the strike. Guy needs a lot of time to get ready for his first mark. If he doesn't, the enemy will command him to make it. He chose to send his allies for that reason. In addition to his concern for them, he does it to buy time. Nothing will be left within 10 kilometers of this spell, by the way. His weapon was an atomic blade. Such a spell was impossible for the enemy to withstand. He chose not to dodge, and Guy saw it. This is admirable. He was warned by the enemy not to underestimate him. He will now demonstrate to him the full extent of his ultimate magic. The adversary attacked. An explosion took place. He believed that Guy's spells were inferior to his ultimate magic. Since the enemy asks, Guy will launch a full-scale attack. And he had enough spells like that ready. The enemy was taken aback. 10% of his power had just been used. How about 20? Now they would know if he would reflect it or not. That was too much power for the enemy. A tremendous explosion occurred. The men saw it. The dragon was knocked down by the large blast wave. They recognized Guy as the perpetrator. They would prefer not to view him as their adversary. They had no idea what was happening there. At that distance, it was difficult to tell. Iris recommended turning around. They might still be able to assist Guy with something if he was still fighting. Yuri was all for it. But they were too weak, so he sent them here. Ryder also believed that they would perish if they returned there. However, that explosion. What if it wasn't Guy? Iris asked. She had an inner voice telling her that she would be free if Guy died. Who is it? She asked. It was her actual feelings, the evil Iris. She was taken aback. According to evil Iris, she was a proud black dragon. She also found it hard to believe that Iris had joined the group. They were good, she explained. Ural and Ryder, they loved her. Iris Evil inquired about Guy. He forces her to study, doesn't he? She finds it unpleasant. Iris believed it was for her own benefit. Anyway, evil Iris clarified she will be free if he dies there. Therefore, it would be preferable to fly far away. Or does she wish to resume her studies? Iris was not happy. What was wrong with her, the guys asked. She clarified that studying was not something she wanted to do. Guy returned. Iris was surprised. Ural asked if she was really okay. In response, Iris said she was afraid. Ryder inquired as to Guy's victory. I haven't, the man said. They had prevailed. The protagonist said that he had recently caused that explosion in response to the question. His atomic blade was it. He chose to strike the enemy with something as powerful as he could to calm him down because he had just begun using soul destruction magic, but he had gone a bit too far and his body was completely covered in dust. However, he hadn't struck him hard. The guys were shocked that he hadn't struck him hard. He claims that transcendental magic draws strength and mana from the outside. Unfortunately, the enemy had not perfected it. Perhaps he would have had a chance. However, Guy discovered that the Brotherhood had stronger members. He therefore intends to carry on their quest for magic and fraternity. He wants their assistance. The men were prepared to assist him. Iris stated that as long as the adversaries are human, they will not be able to defeat Guy, regardless of their strength. He's a person too, the guy told her. Iris gasped. And he was always some other creature in her mind. Guy declared that Iris would also be studying biology as of right now. She was angry and didn't know why he was treating her in this way. Guy recalled that he needed to come in. He employed magic and communication. Ural explained what they would say to the king and whether they were reaching out to him at this time. She looked at the ruler. She hoped he wasn't busy and apologized for bothering him. He asked if something had happened and said that everything was good. Although it wasn't urgent, Ural said. The king recognized her meaning. He inquired as to whether Guy was responsible for the powerful explosion that occurred just a short while ago. The king became aware that they had entered the kingdom of Orden. The fact that the kingdom was already aware of his destruction magic startled the main character. He was also very intelligent. Something else, Ryder thought. They had created excessive noise. Guy saw that this was the case. It hadn't occurred to him that they could do that to the kingdom. However, how did they discover the location of the explosion so fast? Guy believed the Brotherhood had already taken notice. He wanted to know how they learned. Ural made the decision to try. She looked over at the king. The girl asked if he had just been asked to confirm this information by his secret intelligence. It didn't work out. Guy was taken aback. This was a novel situation. They did not provide the information. The Geography Department, not the Secret Intelligence Service, made the request. This was not anticipated. When there is a significant change in the kingdom's landscape, they have a device that logs the changes on the map. And just a few minutes ago, the machine started up and marked a huge area. He initially assumed it was Guy. After all, he is the only one capable of producing such a powerful explosion. And because only Guy, in their opinion, always enjoys creating such huge gorges, the geographers started to believe that Guy had returned after a new gorge formed as a result of that explosion. They didn't believe him and didn't leave him alone, despite his best efforts to keep Guy's existence a secret. He was forced to tell them everything as a result. However, he was able to persuade them that if it had been Guy, he would have perished in the explosion himself, which did not sit well with Ural. At least it had been in the kingdom for a century, but Guy had no idea that such a device existed. As it happens, his battles were always captured on tape. Very amusing. Ryder suggested celebrating and congratulated him on another gorge. Ural asked Guy what he thought. It was his magic, the man acknowledges. However, nobody ought to be aware of his existence. Let's also stop naming gorges after him in general. It enrages him. Ryder chuckled. Everyone will undoubtedly know that he is still alive if he keeps blowing up everything in his immediate vicinity. In any event, the Brotherhood will be even more aware if the kingdom is aware. Guy was certain that eventually they would discover them for themselves. Ural broke the king off contact. Since they had already demolished their second shelter, Ryder assumed that they had already stepped up security elsewhere. Guy attested to this. Their secret documents were with him alone. They were prepared to use their bare hands to rip the men to pieces for them. So Guy is going to start figuring them out when he gets there. He wants to get ready as quickly as possible for the upcoming Brotherhood meeting. They were almost here, by the way. He believed that if he took over one of the king's labs, the king would not object. Guy informed Iris that the Kingdom of Miles was their destination. To get there, the team took a plane. They had created a lot of noise, which worried Ural. Guy had faith that everything would be handled by the king. He now proposed to open the box. There was a magic ingot inside. Iris was asked if she knew what it was by Guy. She was frightened by this. Reluctantly, Iris proposed that it was a magic circle. Guy had been silent the entire time, which worried her more and more. She guessed right, he said. Although it was embedded in an object, it was a magic circle. A few of its components were missing, while others were confused. Everything would blow up in hell if something went wrong during restoration. Iris was alarmed at the prospect. Ural deduced that it was a magic circle cipher. She would now attempt to extract and condense this circle's magic formula. However, this necessitated a great deal of calculations and mana. However, if it succeeds, the circle will be decoded and the data will be available to them. Iris has had enough of their witty remarks. When she is hungry, she cannot comprehend anything. Yuri was asked by Guy if she was familiar with the Brotherhood's cipher. Unfortunately, she was unaware. She did, however, see it a few times. It was dubbed the Aegis cipher. Guy wished to be more specific. To the best of Reuter's knowledge, this is the most challenging magical cipher ever developed. Yuri attested. It requires a great deal of time and work to both encrypt and decrypt. It was referred to as the most challenging for this reason. Guy believed he was unaware of it. The man requested that all of their cipher books and notes be given to him. Before beginning to decipher, he wants to read everything. He was going to study all the materials on ciphers for the past century, the boys realized. Yuri assumed that this book would suffice, since they only had to decipher. It was referred to as a concise explanation of the Egida cipher, information compression, encryption, and decryption. The book's author is unknown. The Royal University of Aegis is the publisher. Ural acknowledged that they had no idea how this cipher came to be. However, it is extremely complicated, and no one has thoroughly examined it in a long time. Additionally, only the Royal University of Aegis is aware of the encryption and decryption techniques. She once made an effort to comprehend, but her knowledge and abilities are insufficient. Perhaps he will be successful. Now they'll find out, the man thought. Guy found that he recognized a lot of the text in this book. He tried to recall where he had placed it. He removed the book from the storage of magic. Ural became aware that he was the author of this book. Yes, it turns out. These books are exactly the same. Ural went on to say that this book was the subject of numerous rumors. But now she knows why no one knows who wrote it. On the majority of his books, he simply did not identify himself. This was unacceptable to Guy. Ultimately, the book was merely the product of his diligence and expertise. Why he was there was a mystery to the man. He would be able to decode the documents now, Iris said. Even Guy acknowledged that his cipher was not that easy. However, it was worth a shot. He cast the spell of deciphering. It went into operation and started to decode the book's contents. Have you deciphered it? Ural asked. Guy had no idea. You should never be certain that you have fully decoded a document. The words and sentences are very readable. A shelter is indicated below. Was it the first time it was there? Ryder saw that where they were now was a shelter. He was asked by the guys if he had figured it out. So it appeared. However, it was information compression rather than a cipher. Even though the code was not used here, it was challenging to decipher. According to Ural, they required a key, a unique magic circle, to crack this cipher. The man responded that the documents would fit in a circle with 1,000,000 lines. Guy employed a magic circle for arithmetic. It will take roughly 5 seconds if you use it in conjunction with deciphering magic. You understand that no one alive today can do this? Ural asked. Guy was taken aback. The dragon has absolutely no idea what they are discussing. The main character believed that the fact that the document had been deciphered and revealed the locations of the shelters run by the Brotherhood was the most important thing. They are also trustworthy. However, he has a different area of interest. What was the origin of the Brotherhood? This was the most important thing he wanted to know. The one with whom he fought. According to this, he is the 8th demigod breeding experiment. Ryder figured there must be 7 or more people just like him. Guy concurred. To create a demigod, they experiment on humans in a variety of ways. The soul change experiment is the first one. Ural and Guy both fit this bill. It's the most straightforward. Additionally, it is conducted in every Brotherhood shelter. He is unsure of where to begin because they have a map showing all of their shelters. They want to destroy all the shelters, Iris realized. She was correct. She was surprised to learn that he wanted to destroy them all at once. He also wants to gather as much information as he can about soul change, even though they will be getting rid of them all. Ural proposed using magic to destroy them. Then, Guy was certain, there would be anarchy. The location of the shot would be discovered by other kingdoms, leading to a string of lengthy conflicts. As a result, it is preferable to eliminate them individually. And this is where they will begin. Ryder saw the Gears branch and the Miles Kingdom's coast. Their hiding place is close by. It was on an island, Guy thought, based on everything. As a result, neighboring countries would not be a concern. According to this, it was bigger than their primary hiding place. Therefore, something intriguing must be present. Guy recommended that they leave right away. Or even better, right now. They would examine the workshop first, though. Ural was unaware of his workshop. Ryder wanted to know what it was. A staggering quantity of national treasure? Iris, who enjoys a lot of shiny, bright things, enjoyed that. Ryder made a correct guess. In addition, they had already arrived. Guy wanted to create weapons for Ural and Ryder. They will have to fight a lot from now on, after all. This made the guys happy. That they would both get much stronger pleased Iris. The fact that it was now Ural and Ryder's turn was wonderful. It appeared that she would have some time to do nothing. Ural saw that Iris's expression conveyed her thoughts. According to Ryder, these kinds of situations are typically when something dangerous occurs. She recommended leaving immediately. Iris proposed to transport them all once more. She was stopped by Guy. He said Ural and Ryder would get stronger if they were given new weapons. Iris, though. She replied hesitantly that she had forgotten entirely. Guy had no idea what she was discussing. What had she forgotten, he asked? Iris's anxiety increased. She would study and fulfill her commitments, they had agreed. The fact that she remembered at all surprised him. She sincerely apologized. Iris said she was sorry that her sneeze had destroyed that odd mechanism. Guy clarified that her sneezing was not the cause. It was due to the aging of the mechanism. Wear and tear had caused it to spiral out of control. Iris gasped. The fact that she didn't have to learn was a relief. Guy was not pleased with this. Controlling magic power was crucial, he said. What if Iris's fire strike unintentionally struck a comrade during a battle? This time, it was an accident. She considered it. Furthermore, she already possessed a lot of power, so mastering magic would significantly increase her capabilities. Iris wanted to voice her thoughts. It will be much simpler for her than for weaker people, who train to become stronger. Not in Iris' opinion. Guy, Ural clarified, just had great expectations for her. This was confirmed by the man. Iris got it. But even if she tried, she wasn't sure she could learn. She was told not to worry by Guy. He had a plan already. He proposed a different venue. Iris had a hunch that things would not go well. The royal garden was where the guys congregated. Iris knew too little about the fundamentals, Guy thought. Everyone fell silent. In his case, he spent roughly a century researching without contact with the outside world, so he was simply unaware of the events of the last century. He recognized that Ural likely wanted to convey that he didn't have a great deal of knowledge either. Fixing such a misunderstanding is not that hard. Ural believed that Mr. Guy was ignorant for more reasons than just not knowing about the most recent occurrences. He saw people in a different way. It sounded abstract, the guy said. Ryder chuckled. But he knew what she was thinking. The girl made the decision to provide an example. She questioned whether it was accurate to say that the human elbow joint only bends inward. What she was saying did not make sense to him. According to Ural, Mr. Guy most likely believed that it could be bent outward if one tried. Is that not the case? The man asked. Maybe it would hurt a little, but he used magic to bend and break it. Since this is not typically done that way and is not mildly painful, the guys were outraged. Guy retorted that seasoned spies are said to be able to dislocate every joint in their body. This was beyond common sense, Ural explained. Ryder also agreed. Guy was taken aback. However, she believed that Guy was strong because of his unorthodox thinking, and that in itself was something to be respected. Now, though, he couldn't tell if he was receiving praise or criticism. Anyway, Guy wanted to point out that Iris needed to do more basic research. Iris knew what he was saying. Furthermore, she believed that the discussion had already veered off course. Guy believed that math should be the first subject they covered. He was informed that beginning with arithmetic would be more appropriate. He recalled that while magic was based on a number of teachings, the one that was most directly associated with it was arithmetic. Magic is composed of an infinite interweaving of numbers, including the output power derived from the amount of magic power used to control it. It's crucial to become accustomed to converting magic power into numerical values. Ural thought this was really instructive. For example, if a spell calls for 50 units of magic power and you only use 40, Iris adds and uses roughly 30. The magic goes out of control because of this. However, Iris actually uses roughly 300. Ryder advised him to slow down because Iris was already feeling overburdened. They hadn't even begun yet, Guy retorted. If you begin with the fundamentals, then. If she knew the numbers, the guy asked. I do, she said. That's how food is counted. He recommended that they attempt to resolve it. Guy gave her an illustration. After examining the example, Iris inquired as to the type of cross it was. Guy said nothing. Ryder chuckled and declared it to be a cross. Ural clarified that it was a plus rather than a cross. Iris considered it. It was called addition, she realized. Ryder was relieved to know this. Of course a dragon would know such a thing, Iris replied proudly. Guy figured she understood what it meant. The man clarified that he was discussing the significance of this issue. Adding 5 and 6 means, Iris thought. How many will be together when you have 5 and 6 buns? Is that so? She asked. Guy said nothing once more. It was true, he replied. She was pleased by this. The man inquired about the response. 5 plus 6. How many buns would there be? He inquired. Iris made an effort to gather herself. In her mind, she pictured the buns and how, as a dragon, she would consume them. There wouldn't be any buns left if she ate them, Iris retorted. The boys didn't say anything. As she counted, Ryder reminded her not to eat them. Iris was taken aback. Ural claims that the inquiry concerned the quantity of buns prior to her consumption. Guy was irritated because no one ever responds to addition with such statements. The fact that she couldn't eat them bothered Iris. She counted, and Ural said she could. She considered the response. It got dark. There will be a lot, Iris finally replied. The boys were upset about this. Guy came to the conclusion that she lacked sufficient fingers. It was wrong, and Iris was upset. Ural clarified that a number should be used as the response. She has 5 buns then. If she puts 6 more in there. The boys inquired as to the total number. Iris pondered. Her response that there would be 11 in total was accurate. Iris appeared to have made some progress in her understanding of mathematics. Ural observed that it gets more enjoyable when you comprehend, doesn't it? Iris nodded reluctantly. Guy made the decision to proceed with multiplication. The abrupt transition to multiplication caught Ural off guard. Guy felt that a clearer explanation of multiplication would be preferable. Who would have guessed that teaching math to a dragon would be so challenging? In the history of magical education, this task might be among the most challenging. Something had clicked into place, Ryder thought. Guy thought that their team's fighting prowess would be significantly impacted if Iris acquired magic. It would be an enormous leap if she were successful. The attempt was worthwhile. Ryder knew there was no hope. Guy had no desire to listen. The man explained that it was multiplication and gave her an example. Iris attempted to interpret the text. 5 times 5 was what she saw. She was told by Guy that it was actually 5 times 5, not just 5 times 5. He advised visualizing a tree with 5 apples. How many apples are there overall if there are 5 trees? The apples made Iris happy. However, they are not accompanied by any trees. Guy believed so. What are they? Ural inquired. They were seeds from apples. He made the decision to use growth acceleration and plant them in the ground. Consequently, 5 apple trees grew. Iris was pleased. Growth acceleration is a high-level control magic, the guys recalled. It calls for exact magical power control. He used it so rapidly, even though it is typically used for a few weeks. Guy clarified this by saying that he only made the magic better. They were taken aback. Iris was asked to respond by the man. There would be 25 pieces, she replied. The response proved to be accurate. She learned from Ryder that she is capable of anything. Iris was happy to receive praise. Here's the next illustration. He questioned whether she could figure this out. Iris pictured 4 trees, each bearing 7 apples. However, each only had 5 apples. Guy asked her to hold off for a moment. He felled a single tree. The man inquired about the quantity of apples. After grabbing one, Iris responded that there were 27. Guy wasn't happy with the response. He pointed out the apple in her mouth and told her that before she could eat it, she had to identify how many apples it was. The man inquired as to the number at that time. Iris reasoned that if she ate one of the 27, there would be 28 pieces. It was accurate. Guy knew it would be difficult to teach Iris math. Ryder thought people would laugh if you hurried. Ural believed that Iris would become unbeatable if she were to master magical control. Guy considered creating magic to learn math automatically. There is nothing to be done. As planned, it will have to be. Make Ural and Ryder's weapons first.